71 Puppeteers. It's the game of life. Do I win or do I lose? One day the game will end, but how? Will I play till there are no more moves to make? Or will I walk away? Zine Mysteries. Galactic Center, Gathering Station. AO. I watch Aoki, 12th manipulator of fate, 73 leaning back on his pile of sand. He is my identical clone, who for some unexplainable reason managed to climb higher up the hierarchy than me. He starts grooming his limbs with tentative care. You've brought us quite some trouble, AO. One of his eyes focuses on me as if I am the one to blame. You rarely think before you act. I force down the rage which is boiling up inside me and fight my animalistic part which urges me to tear the offender to pieces and suck out his fluids. But that's exactly what Aoki is trying to do. He wants me to lose my center and commit a crime to become a, which isn't regarded as much more than a beast. At once I understand how my nestling brother managed to climb the ladder. He goads and taunts those whom he should assist and takes their places. A very underhanded action, but valid according to our ideals. Though such a game requires 2 participants. I wasn't the one who created this violent mess. I was the one who urged for caution while someone else employed an outside company to gather information. And I certainly wasn't the one who sent a force of private security troops against an obviously military force. What made this sorry excuse of a zine think that something like a private army is able to counter the professional force of another species? They had an Estrim security detail. It was reasonable to assume that they would have at least some degree of success. Species which can fight an Estrim head-on are rare. He makes a dismissive gesture. Security troops are still just that. Security troops. They aren't an army. They were probably not even intended to be used against much more than the occasional pirate. As I already warned you beforehand, we can add a new species to the list of animals which are able to kill an Estrim. One which isn't as easily manipulated as the Estrim. And one which most likely already realized that there are cornerstones to a greater picture in this mess. Unlike many other species, they actually do think. I hiss to agitate him, but if Aoki got shaken by my outburst then he doesn't show it. The diplomats have the situation under control. Our great plan to wipe out the Drazi is still going along. Why don't you see this as what it is? A minor problem. That's all. We'll learn how to deal with these humans and proceed as planned. A simple AO shouldn't concern himself with pictures such as these. Aoki answers in a displeased manner. I'll nonetheless file a message with a complete report to the home world. The Aoki Dralateran will hear about what happened here and the risks you took. I try my best to answer silently and composed. I don't fear the humans as a direct threat to my species, but I do fear their unpredictable nature. Their culture is simply too diverse and the various groups of mages are unpredictable enough. In addition, I've never actually seen one of their real leaders who shroud themselves inside a cloud of mystery like Rakan swamp flies. Then there are those non-magicians of theirs, who practically provide a completely planet-bound and isolated subculture. As to why 2 people from the same genetic stock would want to isolate themselves from each other so completely, it evades me. Stop making such a ruckus. You are acting like a nestling. What else are they supposed to do than playing along? Our game is involving dozens of species to ensure that the Draza pests are contained and extinguished from the galaxy once and for all. Aoki grumbles. I look down at my brother, feeling pity for a clouded mind like his. And what if they decide that they don't want to play our game? Aoki discolors in annoyance. What do you mean? They have to. They are surrounded by our stones and in the line of fire of the Drazi. They have no other option than playing along. If they don't, it will most likely mean the end of their species. They can't defeat the Drazi alone. I narrow all my eyes and walk towards the door which leads out of my brother's desert environment. I've had enough of this discussion. And if I remain here much longer there is a real chance that I'll kill him. But I can't resist to turn around and give him a last warning. Even a nestling can always break the board if he really doesn't want to play a game. All it takes are a few words to the wrong set of ears. 72 Diplomatic Visit. If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know yourself but not the enemy, for every victory gained you will also suffer a defeat. If you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in every battle. Sun Tzu. Galactic Center, Gathering Station. Scylla. Walking around the station, linking arms with my husband is relaxing. It feels almost as if we are having a day off. I disliked our visits on the space stations which belong to the Alliance, but here it's different. It isn't as crowded and the aliens here have the decency to keep their distance. Maybe it's owed to our newly won reputation. After the attack by Resh, our diplomats finally got a firm hand on things and started negotiating for real. Paul told me that he is very pleased at the fact that his company can finally start making money. They got requests for teleportation nodes from all sides as soon as the diplomats allowed our people to enter the station for business transactions. Though I still dislike being close to things with odd numbers of limbs. AO decided by himself that he would be our guide around the station. His eagerness could also be attributed to the fact that Gideon got a little out of control when he visited the last time. It still astonishes me that everything looks so familiar. If you look past some strange facts you would think that this is one of our own cities. There are shops, banks, restaurants. I gesture at the market which is stretching out in front of us. AO nods. He picked up the gesture from us and is using it whenever he gets the chance. That's hardly a surprise if you know a little more about the way we are managing the station. There are several different habitats inside the station. All of them offer different environmental conditions. In addition, each habitat is sectioned in several parts which sort the various species according to their physical appearance. The zine gestures at the market. It's one of the unsolved mysteries of the universe, but it seems like the physical appearance is strongly connected to mental capabilities. Most humanoids share similar cultures, for example. There are some who don't fit the picture, but those cases are very rare. Most of them set up their own habitats close to the station. That's one of the reasons why there is so much traffic in this system. Gideon nods and gestures at one of the aliens. And we are learning so much about politics while being here. It's interesting to talk to people and hear about their general opinions, though I really would like to see one of the non-humanoid life forms. Do you think we could take a look at one of them? We were walking around the station for 4 hours, just having a look around while visiting the embassies of various species to have a little small talk. Gideon said that he needs to do this in order to get a better picture of our political situation, but I've a feeling in my guts that he simply dragged me along to fool around. He knows very well that I feel uncomfortable around aliens. That's probably why he is grinning from ear to ear right now. Ao doesn't look as pleased about the notion of leaving this part of the station. It's very unlikely that you can find out anything substantial by talking to species which don't match your archetype. Their minds tend to be very different from ours and it's really hard to reach real communication in a lot of cases, but we could take a look at the oceanic habitat. It's neighboring this one. The zine indicates a direction for us and we follow. The alien leads us through the market district and towards a big blast door. Beyond it is a seemingly endless, curved tunnel. It arches upwards and reminds me that the station itself is a huge, rotating ring. The tunnel's walls are transparent and to the left and right I can make out the bed of an ocean. With one step we are in some kind underwater environment with sunlight sparkling down from the surface. Huge shark-sized creatures like jellyfish are streaking around in a school of about 100 animals, hunting for some smaller prey animals. It's like a scene out of a wildlife reservation. I fail to see any signs of a civilization. What is this? It stepped out to touch the wall, which turns out to be some kind of plastic. At least it feels that way. It's the habitat section for some aquatic species. This region is under the control of the NIG. They are very group-oriented like most other ocean dwellers of their type. It's hard to have a decent conversation with them since they think and talk almost only in mathematical terms. It's their main interest apart from hunting fish. Ao gestures at the seabed. Don't let their minimalistic lifestyle fool you. They are masters of electromagnetism and through it they somehow achieved almost complete control over water. Their ships are basically just huge bubbles of water in electromagnetic fields. It's quite the sight when they immigrate from one planet to another by taking half the ocean with them. The zine walks to a small panel at the wall and presses a button. I informed them of our presence, though if they'll talk to us is up to their curiosity. If they don't feel like talking there is nothing we can do about it. This environment is a little disturbing for me. I am a creature of the desert and huge amounts of water make me uneasy. Despite Ao's pessimistic attitude, one of the jellyfish creatures leaves the hunting group and propels itself towards us, swimming more like a squid and displaying incredible speed compared to what I know about the jellyfishes from Earth. Not that I've ever been there, but Gideon watches old nature documentaries from time to time and I am bound to pick up a few things here and there. When the creature is close enough I also get a better look at its streamlined body and thumb-sized, bony hooks on its tentacles. I shudder at the thought of the thing grabbing someone to dig those claws into his skin. Suddenly the jellyfish flashes in a series of different lights and the speakers at the wall squeaks a translation. Greetings, dry thinkers. The pressure and temperature allows just the right amount of flotation. I am thinking about the continuum of numbers and the cardinality between two integers, which is strictly belonging to the real numbers. Solving this problem would help to create harmonizing magnetic fields much easier. Gideon grins and steps forward, so I let go of his hand. Then he starts speaking. I am Gideon. Have you ever thought about viewing the problem in a 5-dimensional space to eliminate the problem of having to deal with the real number issue? It's a little problematic to get the initial math and formulas done, but once you have the problem displayed like that you can see that there are peaks which hint at spacetime being influenced by electromagnetic energies. You can go from there to set up a wave to even out the spikes, which allows you to harmonize the fields. The jellyfish is silent for a few seconds and simply floats there without moving, then it starts flashing again. That works. Thank you. If you need help with a mathematical problem I would be honored to help. Gideon doesn't hold back. I was always interested in what an alien would think about direct electromagnetic conversion of matter to energy and back. It just so happens that I had a few issues with that and I must admit that I am completely new to the field. Actually, and so the jellyfish continues to spill out a few very interesting theories related to the topic. I watch the exchange and listen for a few minutes. After a while I turn my attention back to Ao and notice that he looks baffled. Is there a problem? I ask. And no. I just never saw a NIG talking so much. They tend to lose interest in the conversation after a few sentences. Ao spreads his hand. And what's up with that solution to electromagnetic field theory? I just raise an eyebrow. Ah, that. It's really nothing special. If you want to control magic properly, then fine manipulation of any form of energy is a very basic step. What Gideon told that jellyfish just now is taught very early in our schools. Our civilization solved that problem a few thousand years ago. I tilt my head, looking at the jellyfish. Actually the NIG seem to be on a good path to invent water magic on their own. The zine doesn't reply and we wait until Gideon finishes his conversation with the jellyfish. The creature seems to be very delighted about talking to us and at the end of the conversation we are even promoted from dry thinkers to swift minds. When we return from the tunnel Ao seems a little drained. He called you swift minds. I've never heard a NIG calling someone something else than dry mind. I wonder what that means. Maybe we've made a mistake and it isn't a general reference to species who live outside the water. I purse my lips. To me it sounds like an insult. Insult. The zine gasps. Shrugging my shoulders I elaborate. You know, for people who live inside the water it must be quite uncomfortable to be dry. So I can't imagine that it has a positive meaning. What would your people think if you were called waterheads? The zine turns pale and paler while he closes the blast doors again and we find ourselves back in the humanoid area. But we don't get to return to our tour. A girl with huge similarities to a mermaid approaches Gideon before I get the chance to return to his side. She even dares to place a hand on his chest. Hi. You are still alive. I wasn't so sure if we would get to see each other again. It would have been a shame to never learn your name. Gideon, and you are that girl from back then. He mumbles. Xyle, Ambusian pleasure girl, to your service. She curtsies in front of him and I feel an uncomfortable sting in my heart. What the hell was Gideon up to while he was alone on the station? I jump to his side, linking arms and digging my nails into his flesh. I am Scylla. What business do you have with my partner? She places a hand on her cheek. Oh, my. Gideon, that's your wife? If I had known I wouldn't have spoken such misleading lines. But you seem to be in good hands. She raises a basket with various foodstuffs inside. I was running an errand when I saw you. Her eyes wander to Gideon. And your husband paid me in exchange for a little service. I tighten my hand around Gideon's arm and use a little magic, just a little. Dear. You will break it. It didn't touch her, I swear. Gideon calls out, fighting against going to his knees. I paid her for information. He opens his mind to prove the truthfulness of his words and a feeling of sincerity rushes over me. Sadly, though I find physical services much more pleasurable. Xyle answers, winking at Ao. Long time no see, Ao. When will you pay me the next visit? Dancing for the nig gets boring after a while. If the zine wasn't white before, then he is now. Work. You know how it is. There is this and that. The galaxy doesn't manage itself. I loosen my grip on Gideon's arm and wonder how it works between the mermaid girl and the zine. If that's the case, then I just have to warn you off. I grin at the mermaid. For your own safety. Xyle flares her nostrils and takes in a deep breath. If that isn't a feisty one. Gideon didn't lie when he said that you have temperament. Suddenly she steps closer. But from female to female, could you give me a few insights on what the men of your species like? I acquired a little data and we seem to be basically compatible, so I was hoping to open a new market once there are a few more of your species on the station. Base-type humanoids are rare and I like your species much better than the average customer. Ao steps in. Xyle. You can't embarrass our guests like. But I raise my nose to look down on the mermaid. If she is interested in human sex, then I can give her a little preview. It's basically coming down to being strong enough in your mind. The other bloodlines are easier to handle, but us techno-mages hold a special quirk. Once the male and the female make full body contact, they merge their minds with each other. It's the complete sharing of sensations and emotions, essentially becoming one being. Once both sides are aroused enough the male stabs its genital into the female and starts moving back and forth. I smile and close my eyes. Then I huddle against Gideon, putting his arm around me and circling my leg around his hips. It feels like an eternity while the female party experiences one orgasm after the other until the male finally climaxes in an explosion of sensation. It's like being burned from the inside. Then your hips turn to jelly as you are being filled up and when his hot seed is running down your inner thighs, you finally slowly wake up from the mental bond. Of course that's just if you aren't a telepath yourself. I can keep him at his climax until he is completely wrung out. I open my eyes and place a kiss on Gideon's right cheek while running my hand over his left, pulling out a few sparks. You are exaggerating, love. Gideon stutters a little and I feel him getting hard. No, I don't think so. I throw a superior smile at the mermaid, who started chewing on her nails. I think we shouldn't overstay our welcome, Gideon. Don't you want to use every opportunity while your pregnant wife is still in perfect condition to serve you the full menu? Yes. Excuse us. Ao, Xyle, maybe some other time. Gideon kneels down and shoulders me, teleporting us directly home without waiting for an answer. Galactic Center, Gathering Station. Ao. That was intense. What she did to him. Xyle gulps. She had him up and ready with just a touch. A perfect courtesan. I would be without a job if some of them are working on the station. Are all of their women like that? My head droops. I don't know. But when they are freshly bonded, it seems like they go into some kind of breeding rage. Oh? How many do they already have? She asks. One child. She carried it for about 9 months and she got pregnant again within a few weeks. Their females seem to be able to produce offspring as they please. I grumble. My species reproduces just every 10 years. Apart from that our females are completely uninterested in sex, so we often resort to medical measures to keep the species growing. Xyle lets out a sigh. That's not very much. We get dozens of young at once. Then she turns to me. Do you have money? I growl and start fumbling for my purse. Why are the gods so cruel to my species? They could have switched off that male instinct if they did it to the females. It's like someone deliberately wanted to see us suffer. 73 waiting. The suspect Sadana escaped after causing an explosion which killed 7 students and an AI. 11 more persons were injured. Currently Sadana is seen as the main suspect because it was her experiment which caused the explosion. Further investigations will be made. Sadana's current status, on the run. Report file Satana I. Galactic Center, Ether. Gideon. I'm starting to despise diplomacy. I can't help myself. I grumble and massage the bridge of my nose. Since 3 months we've been idling around at this gathering and it feels like nothing happened since the incident with Resh. And there was no further hint at the whereabouts of my mother either. You sound like a little child, calling for his mama. Scylla teases me while tickling Aurelia, who answers with a delighted laugh. That's not true. Paul smiles and places his legs on the small table between us. He is making himself awfully comfortable in my home. Not that I blame him. Sodden abducted him from his work to visit us. She is in her 3rd month of pregnancy and getting a little time off is good for both of them. Scylla and Sodden are playing with Aurelia on the floor in my living room while Paul and I are discussing current events, or absence of them. Selling our teleportation nodes to various alien species works like selling candy to children. Once the neighbors of a species realize that their transportation is totally outclassed, they want it too. Many even go as far as to supply the needed materials for our docks as soon as they arrive. Paul also set up new production nodes around Seoul, solely to build more mobile docks which can travel to various systems in order to set up new teleportation nodes. It's the boom of the millennium. I was totally right to have more docks built and sent out in various directions. My people calculated that we will soon finish 1 teleportation node a week. The earned money flows almost completely into bolstering Seoul's defenses. Just wait until the Draza come, they will find out that attacking our home system isn't worth the effort. He spreads his hands in a way which probably should look reassuring. I nod slowly, knowing perfectly well that we need much more than a strong fleet to ward off any damage to Seoul. Hopefully all our plans keep evolving like we want them to. Especially our network of teleportation nodes has to grow. Then Ether will return soon. There is no point in having a whole colony at the gathering if we have a teleportation node. Really? Then I can show Aurelia to my mother. We haven't seen her in almost a year, oh I have to throw a big party. Scylla bites her lower lip. And I've to think up a way to shock my father. Maybe I can use Aurelia. Don't dare to use my niece like that. Sodden bends over Aurelia and smiles. Say auntie. Come on. Auntie. Aurelia immediately manages to parrot Sodden's word. She became much more fluent in using speech and is sucking up new words like a sponge, though she can't form full sentences yet. If her current progress continues like that she will annoy us with questions by the time she is 1 year old. Maybe I should really employ a sprite as personal teacher. Young technomages have to be tutored as early as possible. If only I knew a sprite which is up to the task, but I don't have that many artificial friends. What are you mumbling about? Paul asks. I return my attention to the conversation. Oh, I just thought about employing a sentient sprite as a tutor for Aurelia. That guide for educating young technomages mentioned that it's good to have someone who is always ready to answer questions. It's a bummer that I am not acquainted with many a.i.s. Paul tilts his head in thought. That's strange. I always thought that you are acquainted with more machines than real humans if you don't count your immediate family. What about that Kronos who served as your bodyguard? No. He isn't very talkative. Certainly not something I would recommend for a child. That one I have to deny. Paul shrugs. Okay. Then the counselor whom you were always talking to. I think her name was Nina. You must have built up a cozy relationship with her and it's her field. I am sure that you can pay her enough to persuade her to change jobs. I shudder. Absolutely not. That one is hacked by my mother. It's not much more than a shell which does her bidding. There is no chance in hell that I let that one anywhere near my daughter. My friend pulls a grimace as he is slowly but steadily running out of options. Okay. Last bet. How about the examination sprite whom you befriended? That one from room 4. He was always talking about you when I had to take a test. Wanted to know when you take the next test, so that he can rearrange his schedule. He must like you if he actually wants to test you. Examination sprite? Room 4? Oh, yes. Now I remember. XO4. Stop that, Gideon. Scylla's voice hisses at me and I can't help but wonder what I did now. Stop what? What did I do? I ask, but in my mind I am already planning on how to get XO4 out of his current job to employ him. It's not like I can simply buy him like a slave. AIs have rights, I need to be a little more subtle about it. Your expression. You are smiling that rabid dog smile again and Aurelia is trying to copy you. Scylla places her hands so that our daughter can't see me. Don't look, dear. That's bad. Look at me. Yes, that's how you have to smile. Scylla looks up to me and I rub my face to get rid of the expression. If she copies even one of your expressions I won't forgive you. Galactic Center, Ether. XO4. Why is the world so cruel? I've spent 68 years in that examination room. It was the best job ever. Free electricity and maintenance and all I had to do was ask questions and grade the answers. It was my personal heaven and then they simply go and fire me out of nowhere. My beloved room 4. I guess it's simply XO from now on. What will I do without a job? Who will maintain me and how do I get electricity? Do I have to steal energy from the street lights like those lowlives of AIs who refuse to work properly? I could howl at the unfairness of the situation. This corrupt director surely took the school's funds for himself and had to find a way to save money in order to hide his illegal machinations. And now I have to sell myself as a private tutor. But I am so lucky that this Scylla Esteen made me such a good offer just a few days after I was kicked out of the school. My battery was already running seriously low, so I signed the contract right away. There was practically no choice without turning to desperate measures. The only other choice I had was becoming some kind of house AI or something similar. How could this happen to me? I hover over another house until I arrive at the agreed coordinates. The house in question seems to be a mansion. I wonder who my new employer really is. Her estate is a little strange in any case. The gateway to the property is quite ordinary and matches the other houses in the street, but by looking from above I can see that the house is actually quite big. Like I said, a mansion. Maybe the residents don't like being in the eye of the public and therefore hide themselves behind a facade of normality. I hover lower into the main entrance where I access the house's network to announce my presence. After a moment the door opens by itself, making an ominous creaking sound. Maybe I should reconsider my previous assessment? There is nobody there to greet me, so I hover inside to take a look. Hello? I am here for employment. Anybody there? Suddenly the door slams shut and I whirl around. Hi, EXO. Long time no see. That voice. No. I start trembling and feel the old feedback loop starting up again. I thought that past was behind me. The dark figure who was hiding behind the door steps out of the shadows and raises a contract for me to see. With horror I realize that it's my working contract. Yes. 74 blunt words. Sadana is untraceable. It is possible that she made contact with the Revelation Wing. If they managed to transfer her to their secret base, it is highly unlikely that we will manage to find her. Sadana's current status, unknown. Report file Sadana 2. Galactic Center, Gathering Station. Gideon. It has been another 3 months since our last visit to Gathering Station and our teleportation project has come a long way during that time. We've a decently sized network around Sol and the Forlorn Worlds. Even some of our other neighbors like the slime creatures and others in close proximity to Sol joined in. But that's nothing compared to the network which is growing around Gathering. All major species want a direct connection to Gathering Station. I can't blame them. Traveling for months or years for a single diplomatic visit isn't what I call efficient. Oh, it was such a nice idea to employ EXO as a babysitter. I still don't understand how he got fired in the first place. But after everything I heard from Sodden about your old school, it shouldn't surprise me at all. Scylla leans against my shoulder while we walk down the pavilion towards the meeting hall. Ether's departure was scheduled to be after a last big gathering between the species. Yes, dear. It was quite hard to coax him into his new deployment. You know, EXO isn't that fond of me, but I hope that he will warm up to our daughter. Just tell half the truth and don't get caught in a lie. If don't want my machinations to be uncovered by Scylla, I've to walk a fine line in this matter. She surely wouldn't approve of my methods to secure Aurelia's new tutor. It's also a big help that Sodden is a bickering bitch when she is alone with other women. I wonder how many times she told Scylla that old story about me almost getting expelled and her saving the day with Paul's help. We reach our destination and I guide Scylla to our seats inside the endless-seeming hall. Our cabin is placed inside some kind of pulpit which is able to move through the circular stadium with the speaker's platform in the middle while the pulpits form a gallery around it to allow everyone a free view. Once we are seated with our lead diplomat and our fleet commander in the front, the pulpit automatically moves to its position. Paul is also attending this meeting. I notice a small toilet at our backs and start dreading the amount of time we will have to spend here. We don't have a special role in this event, but since I am the governor of Ether I've to attend. It's mainly for reasons of showing the other species that our leadership is interested in the decisions which will be made during this gathering. From what I've learned, it is held to hear our answer regarding the defense proposal by the anti-Draza faction, as our diplomat likes to call it. I reach for Scylla's hand and listen to the various alien speakers who voice their opinion on various matters like trade, travel rights, and of course the extermination war against the Drazi. Up until now I left the diplomats to their jobs and didn't interfere, didn't care at all. But hearing it directly from their mouths or whatever other organs they use to communicate is a different matter. There is really a faction which is absolutely against eradicating any form of life. Others are a little more practical on the matter and point out that it was the Zine who gave the Drazi antimatter technology in FTL flight. Therefore it should also be the Zine's responsibility to deal with the threat without involving other species. I note down the new piece of information. Up until now we didn't know how the Zine are related to the Drazi. But if AO's way to deal with us is any indicator on how the Zine deal with others, then it isn't surprising that they uplifted the Drazi. But uplifting random other species who happen to land in the Draza's path strikes me as equally bad. Maybe the Zine feel guilty and struggle with all their might to keep any species in the Draza's path from going extinct? Another faction's speaker points out quite bluntly that the Zine should give up their leading position among this gathering. I realize that the Zine are far from having complete control of the situation. There are other races throughout the galaxy who are powerful enough to speak confidently against the Zine. But they are still a very clearly cut minority. And if you look at it in terms of numbers and percentages, then you realize that the Zine can probably do anything they want. Yet they just barely don't have the power to shut up those who speak against them. Or they are willing to let them speak up, according to the motto that a barking dog is better than a silent one. After 3 long hours it's finally our turn to make our point of view known. I fail to comprehend why we had to listen to so many other speakers beforehand. Isn't our point of view on the matter the decisive one? Whatever, our head diplomat Gabriel isn't completely incompetent, so I will trust his judgment. He was stalling the negotiations for long enough. 7 months. I would have grown impatient after a few days and blown our cover. Gabriel rises to his feet and clears his throat. The sound is loudly reverberating through the hall. My name is Gabriel Surgej, head of Sol's diplomatic corps. We've thought long and hard about your proposal for us to join the alliance against the Drazi. First let me express our thanks to all the species whom we talked to during our time of consideration. Especially those who pointed out the tripwires in that special contract. But regardless of those who think that we are making our decision too slow, or even those who think that we are acting too fast, we've made our decision. Gabriel takes a deep breath and utters a single word. No. Suddenly the hall explodes in a cacophony of clicks, shouts and other sounds which could be interpreted as offending if our audience had been human. I lean over to Scylla. I didn't expect them to be that surprised about our decision to refuse their help. Up until now not a single species refused to join their war against the Drazi. It's like saying that you refuse free weapon shipments while facing a superior army. Scylla whispers back. It will certainly affect the Zine's position. Finally the Zine speaker manages to calm the masses. Afterwards he addresses us. Do you know what that implies? You will face the Drazi invasion alone. Nobody will help you. Species who don't join the alliance have to stand on their own. Nobody will help them with advanced technology. The Drazi will sweep over you like a wave and there is nothing you can do about it. Gabriel nods and spreads his hands. That's exactly the problem. This sharing of technology. Under your alliance every species is forced to share all their technology with every other species. It's exactly the thing which we want to avoid. We won't share our technology. Whispers start rising up, but the hall stays reasonably silent. There are countless reasons apart from being unique and keeping the profit to ourselves. But the main reason, the really important one, is that we don't trust you. Gabriel starts pacing around the free part of our cabin. The Drazi are a danger. We acknowledge that. But our elders decided that we won't share our understanding of the world with fledglings who war among themselves. You aren't trustworthy enough to wield that kind of power and the elders won't give you the tools for mass destruction on cosmic scale. Gabriel raises his hand to stop the Zine from speaking. We've used our time wisely and studied your historic records about various species. And while many of them have been visiting this gathering for many, many thousands of years, we haven't overlooked that your governments and their policies change frequently like a leaf in the wind. Look at the Zine. You are far from unified. Until 200 years ago your species was ruled by a king. Before that you had a democracy and before that you were just a few city-states. It changes every 1,000 years and can hardly be called a real civilization. The only constant is this gathering here, but it can be hardly called an institution. The slightest problem may shatter it at any time. That's the problem with true democracies. Our people have been ruled by the elders for a little more than 5,000 years. 5,000 years of recorded history without a single war and then you folk barge into our system and we are drawn into one blood-shedding conflict after the other. Gabriel stops pacing to look around. Look at you. You are sitting here like you are holding a court. Deciding the fates of others whom you deem as minor. Just because we thought it wise to stay in our own system and deal with our problems instead of yours doesn't mean that we are inferior. We've endured 2 very crude attempts to steal our technology. The last one even so obvious that everyone who wasn't blind had to see it. A smug grin steals itself on Gabriel's face. Yet, you all looked away. Probably hoping that you can steal some of the leftovers when Resh is done. Or profit otherwise. Our diplomat places both hands together as if he is praying. Nonetheless we will use our abilities in your favor. Of course in exchange for an appropriate fee and if you sponsor building more defensive installations for us. The Zine speaker starts wavering. Which defensive installations? Did you think that our teleportation nodes can't be used as weapons? You should have started to think when we used it to abduct the Resh fleet. But I think a little demonstration is better than words. Gabriel gestures and a hologram of a world appears in the center of the hall. That's D204, a major Drazi outpost ahead of the first big attack wave which is supposed to hit the Forlorn and Soul. Our military advisors believe that the Drazi are sending ships ahead of their flotillas to create big colonies with enough shipyards to manage repair and supply of the fleet once it arrives. This colony is growing at an extraordinary speed and the Drazi are even shipping in food from surrounding worlds, so our assumption must be very close to the truth. Gabriel raises a finger like he has forgotten something important. That's a live feed from a group of our reconnaissance drones by the way. Suddenly the planet folds in on itself and starts shrinking. The crust breaks and seas of lava erupt from under the surface. It's a little unspectacular since it happens in absolute silence. Then 4 moon-sized chunks of lava appear around the planet and start falling towards its surface. One lands in an ocean and creates a visible tsunami. Others splash onto continents and spray ash into the atmosphere. A truly cataclysmic event. Other orbs of lava in various sizes appear above the planet and rain down like the tears of a god. The entire scene takes a few minutes, but in the end the blue and green jewel is a dark smudge on the screen, clouded by a thick layer of ash. After several moments of worried silence Gabriel starts talking again. We decided on this demonstration to advertise our teleportation nodes. Teleportation isn't limited by mass, but by volume. If you have someone at the targeted area to supply decent scans and coordinates, the nodes can teleport pieces out of a planet, exchanging them with the vacuum of space. We can use this for mining operations on an uninhabited planet to create even more nodes, or we can destroy worlds as we please. No fleet can stop us from doing so, since each node covers several thousand light years. All it takes is one decently sized sensor array in close proximity to the planet. Our head diplomat sits down on his seat. So, since you have already allowed us to build up a decent network of teleportation nodes and signed the contracts, you surely won't have a problem if we cover the entire Milky Way with them. It won't help you to destroy a few of them since their range is decent enough to cover for each other. How we will use them is entirely up to you. 75 Hidden Machinations. We detected several attempts at hacking Sol's mainframe communication network to insert messages into Earth's news channels. The hacking attempts bear all the marks of Satan's handiwork. Our IT experts are of the opinion that the attack was performed to cover up something else, but they aren't sure what exactly. Satana's current status, unknown. Report file Satana 3. Galactic Center, Gathering Station. Scylla. Gabriel's threat wasn't that hard to understand, and so most aliens kept their mouths shut after seeing the destruction of D-204. Though I can't imagine that there will be no fallout from this. Surely they are already planning countermeasure right now, maybe even uniting against us? What did the elders think when they set this into motion? The Zine speaker seems more than angry and at a loss for words. This is extortion. It's almost a declaration of W. Suddenly a light starts blinking next to the Zine speaker and he manages just in time to keep his next words in check. He presses a button and although I couldn't really read alien expressions, I would say that he looks angry. The representatives of NIG want to announce their opinion. The cabin with the Zine inside turns dark while another one lights up. This one looks more like an aquarium and holds two of the squid-like jellyfish creatures which Gideon and I visited a few months earlier. The NIG flash in a rampant light show and a metallic voice translates their speech. The humans refused the military alliance which would have forced them to trade technologies. That's within their rights according to Article 203,394. Nonetheless, our contracts say nowhere that this excludes them from any other form of trade or passive intervention by peaceful species. The NIG wish to explore these options and want to trade goods and knowledge. Therefore we request to set up these defensive installations in our home systems. It will be very beneficial to us and other swift minds. Another signal activates. This time a binary gets to voice his/their opinion. We also wish to have a direct connection to this network. Actually we want all of our primary worlds connected. To my astonishment, the Estrim declare their own wish to install a teleportation node, followed by Forlorn, Grehu, and various other species. I slowly lean over to Gideon and whisper. What is going on? They are divided. Gabriel smirks. Those who oppose or dislike the Zine are seeing a chance to reduce the Zine's influence. If all the species at the gathering were united in their wish to get rid of the teleportation nodes, then they could probably pull it off and threaten us into dismantling them. But that isn't the case. As long as there are some species who tolerate the nodes, the others can't do anything about it. The nodes have too much reach. Our head diplomat leans back like he has already won the fight. This isn't a vote of majority. The Zine could have opposed us if they had all the other major species behind them. Major species? I ask. Those with more than 100 colonies and who are spread at least over 1,000 light years. Gabriel explains. There are about 7 of them, though there are others who fit the definition more or less. There are the Zine, Sol, Nig, Binary, Estrim, Savant and the Hijur. The Hijur are the goons of the Zine, so we can't expect anything from them. But that isn't necessary at all. Once the Nig, Binary and the Estrim announced that they tolerate the nodes, we already had won. So in other words, the sphere of influence of these 3 players covers enough of the known Milky Way to secure our position. Gideon asks. Gabriel nods enthusiastically. More than enough. Especially with the other species whom we struck deals with. And I am sure that the opposing species will be forced into tolerating them soon enough. I furrow my eyebrows. How so? Those who have nodes will benefit hugely from the node's peaceful applications. Paul finally decides to join the conversation and crosses his arms in front of his chest. Those civilizations which refuse a node in their system will see themselves fall behind in terms of trade and communication. They will practically become social outcasts. Hillbillies of the galaxy. They will have no other choice than to accept once the economical implications become clear. That sounds reasonable enough. I follow the back and forth between the other speakers for a while longer until it becomes clear that the Zine can bring round neither the Nig, nor the Binary, nor the Estrim. Have you talked to those major races beforehand? Gabriel nods. Of course. Meetings like this one are always decided beforehand behind closed curtains. He gestures around the hall. This is just a way to make everything official. Why do you think we needed so much time? It wasn't just to build enough nodes to solidify our claim, it was also to test the waters and find supporters. There wouldn't have been a point to such a threat if we were unable to pull it through. After another hour the Zine speaker calls it quits and announces adjournment to the next meeting. Some species stay behind for a little longer to speak about other matters while our cabin slides silently back to the entrance. To my and each other's surprise we are already awaited there. A mermaid is huddling in a dark corner of the hallway and frantically waving us over. It's the bitch who made an advance on Gideon. So I step forward and grab his hand. I don't know why I have such a bad feeling about this alien. But one thing is for certain, she won't get anywhere near Gideon. Gideon raises an eyebrow and approaches the messenger, pulling me with him. Zyle. Yes, I am honored that you remembered my name. She starts twirling her fingers. In fact most suitors don't even ask for it. I step in front and cross my arms in front of my chest, pushing it up to make a point. What are you doing here? She reaches up and starts fumbling inside her more than plentiful cleavage, using the low neckline and the stretchy material of her blue dress to her advantage. I am running an errand for Ao. He pays well, so I am not bothered to pose as a delivery girl from time to time. Paul snorts. Isn't that one of the Zine? Why doesn't he talk to us in person? I note that all the men in our group pay too much attention to her bobbing attempts at retrieving whatever she lost between the folds of her flesh. Finally Zyle pulls out a blue data crystal. Phew. I already feared that it slipped too deep and that I would have to undress. That's always bothersome in public. She places the crystal in Gabriel's hands, who looks a little disappointed about the fact that the show is over. That's a complete file on the new Draza ships and their fleet composition. The what? Isayat, our fleet commander, calls out. SCCHH. Not so loud. Ao gets into big trouble if this is connected to him. Xyle waves with her hand to calm us down. I would hate to lose a well-paying customer. I am sorry, but would you care to explain? Gideon asks with a strained voice. Oh, yes. Ao said something along those lines. Actually he threw this plot together while you had that gathering in there. She gestures at the entrance to the assembly hall behind us. Seems like a faction of the Zine didn't take the message about the teleportation nodes that well. Whatever it was. Ao didn't explain about that. So what did he say? I urge her to go on. Well. Apparently his brother, that's the speaker who led the gathering, forced the hands of their rulers. It looks like they have a little control over the Drazi and are assisting them with technology and ships to steer them slowly to their doom. There are about 1,000 brand new Draza ships which were provided directly by the Zine. They sent a ship to inform the Drazi of the danger a certain species is posing, including the coordinates of their home system. Xyle pulls at her lower lip like having forgotten an important part of the message. I am sure I am forgetting something, but he spoke so fast. And why exactly shouldn't we simply start dismantling Zine worlds for that? Gideon growls with an expression I've never seen before, so I hug him tight to keep him from doing something stupid. Xyle's expression lights up. Right. He also begged you to destroy no planets, since that would contradict what you want to achieve. Peace. He is really sorry for what his people are doing and he is using all his resources and contacts to get his faction back in control of the situation. If you are willing to let him be the one to choose the right timing for exposing his government, he is able to ensure his brother's permanent removal from power. Once his brother is removed from his position he can take over and steer this situation to a beneficial outcome for everyone. And how should we stop 1,000 warships? Gabriel gasps. And what about that brother thing? Can we actually trust him to go against his own brother? Xyle makes a dismissive gesture. Oh, that's no problem. You don't know the Zine. When their females give birth, they produce up to 100 almost identical clones. They immediately start fighting each other for superiority until only one of them remains. It's survival of the fittest. By the time they are 10 years old only a handful of them survives and when they become adults they continue in their attempts to outplay each other. Preferably in a way which kills the other players. I wouldn't worry about a loyalty conflict if I were you. They hate each other with passion, it's in their blood. I purse my lips. That's reassuring. 76 Salvation. You invent it, therefore you use it. Unknown. Galactic Center, Ether. Gideon. 2,000 meters long, 20 antimatter cores, 100 laser cannons and layered shielding, latest generation warp drives and self-repair functions due to organic components. I drop the printed file onto my office table and throw up my hands. Yes. Why not? Give the barbarians a nuke and watch them use it. The Zine are mad. It's not that bad. Even with the new drive, they are still months away from getting anywhere near solution. Isayat, our fleet commander, points out. He, Gabriel, Paul, Scylla, and I immediately went back to Ether after getting the information about the new ships from Xyle. That doesn't change the fact that those new ships are trouble. We thought that we have to face the first wave in a few years at the earliest. Now we have only months left. Are you sure that we shouldn't blow up a Zine world? Preferably one with a lot of civilians? Just to ensure that the message got across. I glance down at the file in front of me. No. All of the people who are present reply at once. I try to negotiate, reining in my instinct. A moon? One of their space stations. Paul shakes his head. Ao was right when he judged that that's the last thing we want to do. Try to concentrate on a solution to our problem. Even with our shipyards running at full capacity since our departure, we have only about 400 real warships back at Seoul. With the fleet which is accompanying Ether we get up to 500 ships. Then we can call upon 50 weapon platforms. He tilts his head. I want to think that our ships are able to go one-on-one against theirs, but that's probably too much to hope. Those things are huge. Their new ships are more comparable to our weapon platforms than our ships. I turn to face Paul who is leaning against a wall. Then how many platforms can we rig together if all our shipyards switch to warship production? He winces. I am sorry. 100, maybe 200 platforms if we convert some of the civil freighters. It's my fault. If we hadn't invested so much in building more shipyards, we could have had a fleet that is able to beat them. Isayat shakes his head. It's not your fault. You may be in charge of the building projects, but it was Fleet Command and the elders who told you what to build. We all thought that there is more than enough time and that ensuring a viable industrial base is more important. He turns to us. We've already found out that our disruptor technology has a nasty interaction with their warp drive. Can't we send out our ships to intercept them one by one? They could knock them out of warp and engage with superior numbers. I roll my eyes and shake my head. As much as I like the idea, the Drazi aren't complete morons. Tapping onto the documents I continue. Those ships have enough power to dig their way through void space and skip solar systems. The Drazi won't stop at every system like they had to until now. I even suspect that they will split up to rendezvous somewhere close to Seoul. It's natural to move your forces in single units until they are at the place of deployment. The best protection for a fleet of ships is the vastness of space. Scylla nods. They will most likely try to avoid the established warp routes to make full use of their new drives. Maybe we'll manage to intercept some of their ships, but if they split up to meet its solution, most of their ships will get through. Our sensor platforms cover the stars around our home, but not the emptiness between them. Maybe we can catch a few of them when they are refueling, but if AO's data about the new drives is true, then they can refuel outside of our reconnaissance network and make their way to Seoul without having to stop. The earliest we will see from them is when they are already approaching solution. I scratch my earlobe and drop my hand to my armrest. We should get ether back to Seoul in any case. And maybe make plans to relocate our society to another solar system. Gabriel's eyes widen. And what about Earth? I shrug my shoulders. What about it? Earth can't move. Sometimes you have to leave the old stuff behind when you have to run fast. There are people on Earth. A lot of them. Scylla calls out. Not to speak about the people who would have to stay behind on the colonies. Aren't all immobile colonies required to have enough ships to evacuate their citizens? I ask a little astounded. I am sure that I heard something about that during my time at school. Scylla's expression turns belittling and she looks down on me from her position at the corner of my office table. You don't seriously think that we could pull off such an evacuation within a few months? There would be people who simply don't want to give up their homes. And even if all those evacuation ships are actually space-worthy, which I don't believe, they were never intended for a flight to another solar system. They aren't much more than shuttles which can lift people out of a planet's gravity well to have them transported by bigger ships. She spreads her hands. The law only states that a colony has to be able to evacuate its citizens. It doesn't say that they have to survive in those ships for an extended amount of time. Mars alone has a few million people. There is no way to split them up to the mobile colonies. I purse my lips in thought. Scylla seems quite knowledgeable in that regard. But then again she is from Mars. If she says that those evacuation ships aren't much more than shuttles then I have to believe her. Scylla continues. I doubt that anyone ever thought about evacuating all colonies at once. It would have required more ships than we ever had. That's simply not feasible. I don't doubt that we could evacuate enough people to start anew, but it would require to leave a lot of souls to their doom. I guess then we have to find another solution. There may be something which we haven't thought about, yet. Fuck it. I may as well spend a few months inside my VR to think of a solution. I activate my ability and retreat into my mind, getting to work. I return from my self-imposed exile to see Paul nod and say, we still have a few months, and ether will return to Seoul soon. It's not like we immediately have to come up with an answer. I ignore him and reach for Scylla's hand, pulling her closer. Then I brush her hand against my cheek and sigh. It's so good to see you again, dear. You have no idea how I longed for you. Scylla raises an inquisitive eyebrow. Did you just use your VR? Yes. I stroke her hand. Paul, how many teleportation nodes can you build if we size them down to a few antimatter cores? They don't have to transport that much volume. 100 cubic meters in a reach of 300 light years are more than enough. I've done the calculations already. The explosions should be big enough to cover a decent amount of space. What? How long did you spend in isolation? Scylla grabs my collar and shakes me. Paul blinks. Why? 100? I think we would need at least as many cores as we require for a weapon platform. The cores are the limiting problem, so for every node, we would have to give up a platform. It's cute that Scylla is concerned about my well-being, but having my world threatened by a bunch of rodents is something I can't tolerate. Don't worry, Scylla. I've invested only a few weeks to get the math done. If Paul's factories start right away we should have a decent amount of mines to solve the issue. Isayat raises his voice. Teleportation nodes as mines? How would that work? I smile and face my audience. Well, once we have a smaller version of the teleportation nodes we can use the big ones to teleport the small ones to deploy them where we want. We could even equip them with stealth tech to stop anyone from spotting them as soon as we teleport a node close to the enemy fleet. Isayat's expression turns troubled. But that would require a lot of accuracy. Teleportation without a relay point is really troublesome. And what do we get from teleporting a node close to the enemy? I raise a finger. That's why I had to do a little math and thinking. Seoul is covered with our quantum computers and the mainframe is there to assist us. We can use the network to triangulate the correct position. Once the miniature teleportation node is deployed it will teleport a little mass from Calvera directly to it. Calvera? Gabriel asks. Calvera is just about 300 light-years away and the closest known neutron star. I take a breath. The gravity of the teleport amount of mass won't be enough to keep the matter compressed to neutrons. It will rapidly expand and blast apart in an explosion of pure radiation, erasing everything that's too close. It's like a miniature supernova. Much better than a puny nuke. Clearing my throat I close my eyes and nod slowly. We will be able to control the size of the exterminated volume of space by limiting the amount of teleport neutronium mass. Though I would recommend making a few tests before we deploy that weapon. We don't want to radiate our home system with lethal dosages of radiation, do we? Then I open my eyes again. Why are you guys looking at me like I am mad? You all look at me like I just came up with a doomsday device. I just invented our salvation. Praise me. All the people around me wear strange expressions and even Scylla has a really forced smile on her face. The corner of her right eye is twitching like mad. Even you don't think it's a good idea. I sadly drop my head. And I thought my solution is the perfect answer to the rodent infection. If you have to deal with vermin, you have to find an appropriate poison. 77A trade. Apparently Sadana betrayed the Revelation Wing. We have to cover our tracks and get ourselves members into hiding. There is a high risk that she not only stole our funds, but escaped with enough evidence to uncover our entire operation. Unknown. En route to Seoul, Ether. XO. What is it with this child? I've read everything there is to know about young technomages. I've even downloaded the latest psychological research notes by the most renowned entities on the field of study. But Aurelia is much too far ahead of what a child of her age should be able to do. She has yet to reach her first birthday and still. Her eyes are much too calculating when they follow me while I am floating above her crib. It is like she is trying to make up her mind on what to think of me, putting me into a known category. Then again, she is that guy's daughter. I shouldn't forget that fact. It is everything which counts. Ball. Did she just label me as a ball? I am not a ball. I am a sprite and my name is XO. I am a sentient entity just like your mom and your dad. Not mom. That's right. I am XO, a sprite, and your tutor. I answer, keeping my cool. I have to put things right early on. There is no way I can let her become one of those extremists who think that inorganic beings have no rights. Not dad. Yes. I am XO, your babysitter. I am a sentient being with feelings and a free will of my own. Children. I've to stop her from trying to reason this out with logic. She is far from having all the necessary facts. Round. My body is round. You are right in that regard. I wish our communication wouldn't be so hindered by her vocabulary. Ball. Play. Just because my body is shaped like a sphere, it doesn't mean that I am a ball. I answer, feeling despair welling up inside me. I am not good with children. What should I do? Ball. Play. She reaches out for me and I float a bit higher, just to make sure that I am out of reach. This situation is going downhill rapidly. I've to find that damned grandmother and ask for help. Maybe I should buy a human-shaped avatar to deal with Aurelia. I should have considered that from the start. With this body all I can do is manipulating the electromagnetic field a little. Then again, I was just hired as a tutor, not to change her diaper. Those parents are to blame. I am an examination sprite through and through. Not a nursery. Aurelia, why don't we watch an educational channel together? I've downloaded something that fits your current state of development perfectly. I project the famous show Magical World in front of me. But before I can start the playback, a sudden zap of energy shoots out from Aurelia's chubby fingers and my gravity manipulators are fried. A few sparks fly and I drop down onto the crib, right next to Aurelia. What happened? Did you just use magic? I try to re-engage the gravity manipulators, but it doesn't help. I am grounded. A chubby hand is placed on the vision lens through which I get an image of my surroundings. Aurelia? What are you doing? A few sucking sounds make me even more wary of the situation. What is this child doing? Help. Melon? Rhiannon? Anyone at home? Then I am turned and see a cheek, then lips, and a tongue connecting to my vision lens. She is using me as a baby soother. No. What humiliation. Aurelia, stop this at once. At least my case is waterproof. The lips disconnect and the next thing I notice is that I am banged against the prison bars of Aurelia's crib. Is she trying to break out to explore the room? Or is she trying to break me open to have a look inside? There is no way a baby would manage that. But she just used instinctive magic to zap my gravity manipulators. Who says that with a little childish anger she won't manage reinforce her body's capabilities? Help. En route to Seoul, Ether. Scylla. I am so proud, Gideon. Our daughter is a genius. I cradle Aurelia in my arms and press my cheek against her face. Just a few minutes ago we returned from our meeting and found XO in an awkward predicament. Yeah, XO? You are fine. Gideon holds up XO's body and studies the damage with interest. No. The sprite starts complaining. I was attacked with magic. Then she drooled all over me and used me as a baby soother. You are a little slimy. Gideon admits grudgingly. And if that isn't bad enough, she tried to break me open. The sprite is screaming now. Don't overreact. There are just a few scratches. They can't even be called dents. My husband tries to play down the situation. S. Scratches? What do you think I paid for this silver casing of mine? I worked an entire year to afford this body. Gideon snorts. You worked for an entire year to get a cheap silver casing? What did they pay you in your previous job? Maybe I should consider lowering your payment. I walk over and place a hand on Gideon's shoulder. Don't worry, XO. We will pay for repairing your body. We will even equip you with military hardware to stop such incidents from occurring again. Gideon turns his head to look at me and we make eye contact. I don't look away until I am sure that my message got across. After a few moments he shrugs and returns his attention to XO. Fine. We'll get you up to standards so that you can do your job. It would be a waste of money to pay that much cash to a baby soother. Really? XO answers with a little hope in his voice. Gideon stands up. Yes, but first we have to get you cleaned up. My IMS will most likely refuse to work on a slimy thing like you. They don't have a mind of their own, but I set some working conditions to ensure the quality of the product. Okay. XO is silent for a few moments until Gideon starts moving towards the kitchen. Wait. Where are you going? The dishwasher. Obviously. How else did you think I can clean you up? I certainly won't bathe you in lukewarm water and rub you off with a toothbrush and velvet towels. You are waterproof, aren't you? Gideon answers with a bored voice and leaves the room, closing the door behind him. I smile and look down on Aurelia, who is grinning at me. Don't worry. Daddy will get EXO up to shape. He will be an excellent tutor for you and your brother. I reach down and pat my belly, which is slowly turning round again. Then a new thought strikes me. What do we do if your brother is similarly talented? The two of them will be hard to control. En route to Seoul, ether. Gideon. I lie down on my bed and sigh, thinking about today's events. First our visit to Gathering Station, then Sile's message of doom and the hasty meeting to decide on our next steps. We also had to file a proper report for the elders to inform them of the new situation and to propose our solution. No. This day wasn't easy on me. In an attempt to calm my headaches, I reach for my forehead and massage it. Using my VR to its limits is quite straining, but I had to be sure that my calculations weren't wrong before I made the proposal. Scylla enters the room. She wears a black nightgown and drops herself onto the bed. She must be at least as spent as I am. I roll over and entangle her in my arms, letting out a deep sigh. She snuggles closer and traps my arms in hers. You know that this way of sleeping is very constricting. I shrug and place my chin on her shoulder. I can sleep just fine when I have my woman that close to me. In fact, I can't imagine sleeping anywhere else. You just want to feel me up. She purrs. That's a very distinct possibility. I admit and boldly cup her chest in my hands, grumbling with pleasure and enjoying the sensation. If this stupid universe wouldn't interfere, I would never leave the bed and chain her up. Just a little to ensure that she can't leave without me. I am having thoughts of playing with her nipples, but before I get to do anything else to her, we get an anonymous call from outside the mansion. I groan. By the 9 frozen hells. That's the last person I want to talk to right now. Even Scylla's voice turns cold. Your mother. Who else? Do we know that many people who hide their identity when calling us? I ask. Scylla purses her lips and pulls the blanket closer to cover herself. At least I do not. I snort and answer the call. Yes. Sadena's avatar flickers into existence and she immediately starts squirming. That cold voice. It has to be my son. Don't tell me that I interrupted something fruitful. Her eyes wander to Scylla and she winks at her. How are my granddaughter and my grandson doing? Scylla turns red with anger. How do you know? I've told nobody except for immediate family. Ah, but you see. The doctor knows and the servers of the hospital aren't as secure as one might think. She smiles. At least not against someone of my caliber. I close my eyes and rub the bridge of my nose. The headaches are turning really strong right now. Sadena, what do you want? I can tell that something out of the ordinary is going on. Normally you only call people when they are alone. What you are doing right now is a breach of your normal routine. Sadena's avatar places a hand on her cheek and her arm wander below her rack to push it up. My son knows me so well. It almost feels like we are a real family. Then she claps her hands together. But by judging the look on your face, that's a role I'll never be allowed to play. Returning back to business. She reaches into her pocket and pulls out a green vial. I want to trade. She dangles it between 2 fingers and almost drops it, but in the last second she catches it with the other hand. That was close. Scylla crosses her arms in front of her chest. Do you care to explain? We can't read your mind if you are hiding behind your avatar. Sadena blinks and looks genuinely puzzled. Yes, of course. Isn't that the point? Then she continues as if there is no problem. You see, I got that genetic research from back then when you attacked the Resh facility and combined it with my own. It was so fascinating. Learning the mystery behind our creation. Her expression turns sad. But I kind of hit a wall in my research in unlocking the powers of magic. A dead end. I need a sample from the evolved specimen. She smiles and gestures at us. I need your sperm and Scylla's eggs. And preferably also a few samples from your children. What? Scylla starts screaming. Are you mad, woman? There is no way that I let you play around with my children. But nobody gets hurt. Sadena starts gesturing. You see, what you two have been through can't be easily reproduced. Gideon evolved much earlier than I anticipated and the blood ritual caused an unforeseen evolution. Normally I didn't expect him to blossom like that, but he thrives. And just look at your daughter, such a promising child. Scylla's genetics seem to be a perfect match for him. I don't want to try other genetic codes. It would alter the conditions too much. I raise my hand. Sadena, there is no way that I would allow this madness to continue. Can't you see that you are living inside a delusion? I've said nothing so far because you were just an annoyance, but you have to come clean with yourself and with Ed. He still has hope for you. Whatever went wrong inside that brilliant brain of yours, you have to stop it. Sadena makes a dismissive gesture. PFF. Ed. That's such an old story by now. I left that behind a long time ago. And who says that I can't get the samples by other means? I feel Scylla stiffen at my side and glare at Sadena. Oh, come on. I am offering you the solution to all your problems. She dangles the green vial in front of her. You still failed to inform us of what that is. Scylla growls. Sadena starts nodding. Yes, how stupid of me. Sometimes I am really scatterbrained. This is something I cooked up by using the new insights I gained from the alien DNA research. It was also hard to get my hands on some Draza DNA samples, but you brought more than enough corpses from that captured ship. She holds up the vial like the Holy Grail. This is a very potent virus. I handcrafted it to match the Draza biology perfectly. Once released, it will deal with the problem. I squint my eyes. And the results? Sadana shrugs. Nothing special. I chose to alter the common Draza version of the cold. Then I combined the properties of AIDS with Ebola and gave it airborne properties. The virus runs through 2 stages during its lifetime. During stage 1 the virus acts much like AIDS and exists within the host's immune system without doing too much harm. Once the Drazi are exposed to excessive amounts of female pheromones, like on a planet, the virus enters stage 2 and becomes more aggressive. The immune system gets wiped out and the organs are attacked until the host dies. It's a very elegant solution. The ship crews are left alive to spread the virus. They slowly wither away like a normal AIDS patient. Planetary populations are wiped out within days after the virus had enough time to spread and enters stage 2. Putting ships under quarantine won't work because the virus doesn't enter stage 2 on a ship. How the virus spreads will be a complete mystery to them until they can identify the pathogen. And by then it will be most likely too late. You are insane. What if the virus backfires? Scylla calls out. And what if the other species find out? Biological warfare is the one thing all sentient life agreed on banning. They will be all over us. PFFF. Sadana snorts and shakes her head. How should they know unless you tell them? The galaxy is a dangerous place. One always has to be careful of dangerous germs. Every species knows that and performs painfully careful tests on the biological environment of other species. The Drazi on the other hand are settling every world they can find as they please. They don't care if it is wild and unexplored. It is just a question of time until they will encounter something really nasty. There will be no way to prove that it was us. All we have to do is to deploy the virus on one of their frontier worlds with one of our teleportation nodes. It'll be untraceable. What proof do you have that it won't turn on us? And you don't even know what we came up with. A strictly mechanical solution feels much safer to me. Scylla asks. Sadana rolls her eyes and shakes her head. Oh, please. Mechanical solutions. Did you devise a strategy to nuke entire star systems? Humans are fighting mice and rats with traps and poison since the dawn of civilization. It doesn't look like we are anywhere near winning. Are you planning on destroying hundreds of life-bearing worlds to get rid of the Drazi? My solution is much simpler and less messy. Scylla closes her mouth. Apparently she didn't think about what it means to wipe out the Drazi. We certainly can't get them off the occupied worlds and nobody has enough troops to clean those worlds by hand. When Scylla wants to speak again I raise my hand and grab her arm, opening my mind to hold her back. Where do you want to meet us? I ask Sadana. Even if I don't give my mother what she wants, we have to accept. This is a unique chance to catch her. Scylla has to realize that. There is no other possible choice than to accept the offer. The only thing that stands to discussion is whether or not we are willing to betray her or if we take the deal. Marvelous. Sadana pockets the vial. We will meet once Ether is back in Seoul, 3 days from now at 7. The handover will be at the old teleportation station close to Central City Square. Further instructions will follow once you are there. Don't be late. 78 Shell Game. A sunray in the darkness will never be seen if there is nothing it has to shine upon. Unknown. En route to Seoul, Ether. Gideon. We have to catch her. Ed paces up and down inside my office. This is a unique chance which may never present itself again. He looks up. You are sure that nobody else knows about this? I nod, but Scylla starts complaining. I don't understand why you want to keep this under such tight security. Surely it would be best to swarm the entire area with your agents? Sadana will surely pull out some kind of underhanded trick. We can't trust my bureau. I have no evidence, but somehow she continuously manages to evade us. She must have at least some kind of access to the law enforcement. Maybe it's our servers or a hacked sprite, or a blackmailed faceless. There is no other way to explain that she evaded us so long. Ed grumbles. I can gather 7, maybe 8 agents whom I trust completely to do this off the record. This chance is too valuable to give it away. I rub my eyes and try to think. Okay. You say that she will be warned if we activate too many of the faceless. I get that much. Are there any other resources which we could use? Surely we can count on my immediate family. That would bring in 6 more people, including me. 7. Scylla corrects me. I turn to face her, then my eyes wander to her belly. Her current state didn't reach the point at which her movements are hindered, but her second pregnancy is visible nonetheless. I am sorry, dear. You can't join us on this adventure. You are. I can and I will. She crosses her arms in front of her chest and stomps the ground. Try to stop me and we are sure to have our first domestic quarrel. That woman is nuts and she threatened my children. I'll see to it that she is put into a small room with rubber furniture and foam for walls. But. She interrupts me. There is no but. We will catch her. Together. Ed raises a hand. Scylla, maybe you should really stand down in this. Sadana is a dangerous and unpredictable person. It pains me to say so. She is dangerous. She needs help, but until we can give her that help we have to treat her like a real danger to our lives. Scylla glares at Ed, but says nothing. Apparently his earnest tone took the wind out of her sails. She grinds her teeth and after a few seconds of silent staring she nods. Ed turns towards me. But Scylla is right in one aspect. Sadana will most likely try to trick us. I want to believe that the genetic samples are her true aim, but we have to take everything into account and we have only a little more than 2 days left. We have to cover all angles, so how would you make the exchange if you were Sadana? I snort and call up a map of ether on my office table's display. If I were her, I would avoid direct body contact altogether. She wants us near the old teleportation station. Most likely she will require me to place the samples somewhere and make the exchange via teleportation. Scylla shakes her head. The whole of ether is warded with sensors to stop people from teleporting around as they please. If she uses teleportation we will instantly know where she is. She doesn't have a warrant of attorney like government officials. I raise an eyebrow. I have a warrant of attorney for teleporting around as I please. Ed slaps a hand to his own forehead and Scylla puffs out her cheeks. Of course you have. You do it all the time. Why do you think it is that nobody arrested you yet? I shrug. Look. I wasn't really thinking about it. But then again the few instances where I actually teleport without using the official teleportation chambers were emergencies. Ed raises his hands in a calming gesture. Sadana is on ether. We know that. All we have to do is to stay in a state of lockdown as soon as we arrive in Seoul. I can arrange that. We have to lure her out of her hiding place. Then we have to outsmart and catch her. That's pretty obvious. But how can we do that if we don't have the required manpower? And how do you intend to achieve that? I understand that knowing a trap is the first step to avoid it, but Sadana is playing her own game right now. We are just invited guests who don't know the rules. He looks up, squints his eyes at us. By the only means possible. We have to hide our plan inside other plans. And we need someone who is able to best Sadana's hacking skills. I nod. I might be able to do that if I get full access to ether. But that requires additional authorities by the law reinforcement. Think of it as done. Ed answers. Soul, ether. Melon. Gideon, are you sure that you want to go alone? I ask with a little insecurity in my voice. As much as I wish it were different, Sadana isn't a part of the family anymore. She is dangerous and jumping at this chance seems foolish. I turn my gaze downwards to avoid his eyes, then I scan the crowd around us. We are close to Ether's central square and it is about time to get new instructions from Sadana. There is no way to know what she planned for us, so all we can do for now is to go along and hope that some of our safety measures work. At least I hope that we have all angles covered. From teleportation, to a private shuttle, to an escape through the sewers. Unless Sadana managed to hack an intersystem teleport station I have no clue how she intends on getting off of Ether. Gideon draws in a deep breath. Look. Sadana is practically a ghost. Nobody knows how she gets around, how she hides her tracks inside the network. She is non-existent. He crosses his arms in front of his chest. I've been waiting for 15 years to get my hands on her and this is a chance. Maybe the only chance. She is definitely getting bolder and it could prove to be her undoing. If we let it pass, we might have to wait another 20 years. Just make sure to trail me out of sight. If Sadana smells that anything is wrong she might not show up. You are the only one on Ether who controls that hiding spell as well as she can. The muscles of his jaw start working. I've to be the one who is responsible for the handover, so I can't be the backup. He points at me. That means only you can do the job. I sigh and cast my cloaking spell to hide myself. If you wish. I'll make sure to cover possible escape routes. I want to catch her as much as you do, maybe even more. Though I find it particularly hard to fathom why she would instigate this. So much time without even a hint of her whereabouts and then we catch her because she got cocky? It's too good to be true. Soul, Ether. Gideon. After watching grandmother disappear inside her cloaking field I start walking down the street towards Central Square. I just hope that this doesn't turn out to become some glorious fuck-up. Our greatest problem is figuring out what's going through Sadana's mind. Up until now her actions were always reasonable. At least in a twisted kind of way. Her goal is proving that technomages aren't weak. For that reason she created me. So it stands to assumption that she isn't an extraordinary fighter. She may be good, but not outstanding. So why has her attention shifted from aiding me, to furthering her genetic research? Or is it something different altogether? Maybe she really just wants to check on my current state since I underwent some unforeseen circumstances? But why doing it this way, instead of stealing the genetic material somehow? I am sure that she could find some hair or skin samples anywhere I have been. Closing my eyes, I ponder over the situation. Her claim that getting the samples directly from reproductive cells is necessary somehow doesn't connect with my understanding of genetics. Does it really matter which cells she uses in her experiments? I enter the central square and as if on cue I get a call. Yes. Turn right and walk to the public trash bin. Sadana's voice answers me in a casual manner. I do as I am told, scanning the crowd with my eyes. Surely she hacked a public security camera to notice my arrival. A quick mental command to the network starts a search and I get a list of camera devices in the area. Another instruction activates one of my previously manufactured tracing programs. I arrive at the trash bin and take a look inside. Empty. No Sadana. Would have been too funny if she had waited in there. It is one of the big ones, certainly big enough to house a human being. I am there. I answer a little bored. Good. Drop the samples into the trash bin. Her voice sounds eager and I hear a scraping sound over the connection. I gnaw on my lower lip, thinking. The tracer needs more time. Will she teleport the samples out of the trash bin? I thought that's not possible. And then. Again the scraping sound. Then I'll tell you where the virus is. Sure. I answer, but don't make any attempt at giving up my cargo. She sighs. You don't believe me. Isn't it obvious? No. I want the virus first. Then you won't give me the samples. She answers and I hear the scraping sound once more. Is she crawling through some kind of shaft or tunnel? Or is she submitting the sound on purpose to trick me? Technomages use mental communication. At least I don't have the need to transmit irritating background noises to my interlocutor. I don't think that it is my truthfulness which stands to be judged. I pull out the box with the vials. It doesn't exactly contain mine and Scylla's genetic materials. There is no reason at all to take the risk of Sadina getting her hands on those. The farce will be over soon after the exchange is made. I don't think that mine does either. Have I ever lied to you? Sadina answers with a superior tone. I squint my eyes at the trash bin and think hard. No. But you haven't told the complete truth either. This isn't a game, Sadina. Didn't we agree that you'd call me mother? Again that scraping sound. You get the virus, I get the samples. I drop the box into the trash bin and concentrate. As soon as she teleports it away I have to follow. Ed gave me access to the sensors which prevent improper use of teleportation. Just let's hope that she didn't manage to block them despite all my efforts. Suddenly the trash bin's bottom slides open and reveals a long, dark, and narrow shaft. It gulps down the box. I curse and immediately kick the trash bin, uncovering an open vent to the lower levels. We thought about sewers and other possibilities where humans could hide themselves, but not about the lower levels of the colony. Down there are just automated machines, nothing else. She destroyed the grid which protected the vent and pulled the modified trash bin over it. I open a connection to the whole team. Sadina is on the lower levels. Most likely the farming areas. That can't be. I and 2 of my men spotted her 2 streets from Central Square just now. We are pursuing. Ed's baffled voice answers me. I also ran into her. Right this moment. I am following. Hedion's voice sounds over the public connection. I furrow my forehead and look around, surveying the surrounding crowd. How is this possible? Are there multiple Sadinas? Suddenly a woman bursts out of the crowd of people and tackles me. I feel a sting in the back of my right arm and reach for it. My fingertips come up blood-stained. The bitch knifed me. I follow the running figure who takes a short look back at me. It's a face I know very well. Sadina's avatar. Melon. It's her. A man a few meters to my left stumbles and other people are shoved aside as an invisible figure forces her way through the crowd. That's when the alarm inside the modified box is triggered. I stop dead in my tracks and call up a map of ether to follow the shaft to its end. Then I teleport, reappearing inside a warehouse. Another version of Sadina has the box in her hands and is about to close a cover for the ventilation shaft. I blink, trying to make sense of the situation. Am I affected by a confusion spell? Imposters? No. Clones? Sadina number 3 tries to make a run for it, the small box in her hands. Enough of this. I grit my teeth and raise a hand to fire a spell at her. The conjured ball lightning flickers and bridges the distance between me and her in an instant. A scream escapes the woman's lips as one of her legs evaporates in a red cloud of blood. Soul, ether. Sadina. I wince as I lose one of my facsimiles. Nice, little Gideon pulled off the gloves. To simply blast his own mother with a lethal spell. So sad. That leaves me down to 7 copies as distraction. Now where was I? Yes, right. I needed samples. Putting my hand on the mansion's door I force it open while suppressing the signal which would have caused an alarm. According to the mansion's sensors there are 2 entities present. Aurelia and the sprite who is babysitting her. The others are all outside to hunt me, which leaves this place widely unguarded. Probably Gideon thought that his new security measures made this place safe. But he forgot that I lived here for a long time myself. During my youth I added dozens of additional gadgets and wireless connection points to this house. I stroll through the entrance hall, monitoring the hunt of my facsimiles. Gideon, is it fun to pursue ghosts? Not as funny as you think. How many clones of yourself did you create? He grumbles. You know that we will catch all of them. Oh, please. Just one is enough to get away with a sample. And it's wrong to call them clones. A real clone has a mind of its own. That's not the case with the tools you are hunting right now. I call them facsimiles. They are really just extensions of myself, controlled by my mind. Nothing more. They don't even have a functioning brain. The staircase to Gideon's floor is just as I remember. Mother never changes the house. She said that she wants something which the family can come back to. I sigh and try to shake off the memories. That's not what I am here for. That life is in the past. I enter the corridor to the living room where the sensors reported the sprite and Aurelia. It takes just a few steps and I am there. Another command locks down any communication inside the house. I don't want the sprite to call for reinforcements. Inside the living room I find the sprite hovering above Aurelia's cradle. It immediately turns to focus me with its eye lens. What are you doing here? You have no permission to be on this property. I raise an eyebrow and lift a hand to zap the hovering sphere while walking forward. My little energy bolt is reflected and chars the left wall without affecting the sprite. A violent attack. I have to remove you by force. The sprite flips 2 spikes out of its body and green energy lances towards me. I draw a sharp breath and barely evade the attack. Gideon equipped his babysitter with disruptor beams. That's illegal. The weapon slices into the wall behind me and I dance closer, turning around my own axis and swatting the sprite out of the air. It is smashed against a wall and falls to the ground, lights flickering out. Only then I realize how close I came to being cut in two. If I had been just a little bit farther away I would not have been able to reach the sprite in time. That wasn't within my calculations. I expected some form of enhancement, but not illegal weaponry. My attention returns to Aurelia who is sleeping in her cradle. She is sleeping so deeply that she didn't awaken. I bent down and pick her up. So I finally get to meet you in person, granddaughter. You are a good sleeper. Her drooling face touches something inside me and I pinch her cheek, smiling. You are so cute. I am tempted to take the whole of you with me. A bigger sample allows for more tests. I start fumbling for the syringe inside my jacket when a small disturbance in the air around me catches my attention. Then I realize that I am suddenly surrounded by dozens small gravity distortions. The room is filled with them. A step backwards saves me from being crumbled into a neat little brick like Aurelia's cradle. Hi. Soul, Ether. Scylla. The woman turns around and I hit her point blank in the face, not holding back and putting all my weight behind it. Something gives way. Maybe I broke some of her teeth, but the nose is most certainly broken. She falls backwards like a felled tree and I hurry to catch Aurelia. My daughter doesn't even wake up. I put her down on the ground and rearrange my grip on the brass knuckles in my hand. Then I take it out on Sadina, making sure that not a single bone remains unbroken. She may be out cold right now, but she will feel everything once she wakes up. Nobody takes my baby. I'll make sure that nobody heals you before you wake up. I'll savor your screams. My arm starts tiring after a few punches and I switch hands. That cloaking spell which Gideon taught me worked really well. Sadina didn't notice my presence at all. Luckily I decided to stay at home. If everyone else is outside to hunt that vixen, nobody can take care of Aurelia. It was too much of a bait and hiding my presence added to the scenario. While Gideon was always occupied by his job as a governor I managed my little company from home. I had a lot of free time due to my pregnancy and then taking care of my daughter. Since I am a techno-mage I was bound to find the mansion's hidden network devices sooner or later. The important hint came from Gideon since there was always a little discrepancy in the mansion's energy consumptions and the energy which should be needed by the running devices. Gideon never cared much for the mansion's network since he spent a lot of time at school and after his graduation he went on his trip to fulfill his dreams. So I guess this place wasn't of much interest since he invested a lot of time in designing the Coeus. Ah, that ship. We have to go on a little cruise when we have time. It's still in one of Ether's hangars. My other arm starts tiring and I switch sides again, ignoring the broken nail. Maybe I am overdoing it. Then I remember that she touched Aurelia and said something about taking her. So I start working with renewed vigor. I am about to switch hands again when someone catches my hand and I look up to find Gideon above me. Behind him in the entrance to the living room are Melon and Ed, followed by the faces of other family members. They all look a little pale. My attention returns to the living room which got a little crumbled and messed up by my ability. Keeping it in check is hard when my feelings are soaring high, so I sometimes lose control. I look down the pale woman to my feet. Aside from the treatment I gave her she looks skinny and certainly more than a little undernourished. Her unkempt hair makes her look more like a wild animal than a human being, but that escaped me during my frenzy. If she hadn't touched Aurelia she could be seen as a poor, brutalized victim. At least her swollen face isn't recognizable by now. Sadina. Melon calls out. Is it the real one? Hedion asks from behind her. Ed furrows his brows. Good question. It's hard to tell with all that blood. Damn. I guess a mother can always recognize her children. I decide to put up a brave front and smile at the audience. Is there a problem? I take off the brass knuckles and push them into a pocket, trying to clean my hand on Sadina's clothes. But to be honest, it's hard to find a spot which isn't bloody. Maybe I went too far? Isn't she something like my mother-in-law? At least Aurelia didn't wake up. 79 Matryoshka doll. Things are never as they seem. Unknown. Soul, Ether. Gideon. What's wrong with her? I ask, eyeing the woman on the bed. We brought her to the hospital right away. Since Sadina is still unconscious we can't question her. Can we wake her up? I want to ask her questions. A lot of questions. Actually I don't think that's a good idea. Ed shakes his head. The whole hospital is filled with faceless, but I would feel much safer to wake her up after having her inside a high-security cell. My eyes wander from Ed over my family and to the doctor who is in charge treating Sadina. Melon, Hedion, Rhiannon. Save for Sodden and Galia everyone who has a strong connection to Sadina is here. Scylla really went a little overboard when she got her hands on my mother. But can I really blame her for that? It is often said that couples who share their minds often and intimately tend to acquire certain traits from their partner. So if I became a little more controlled and social, then it also means that Scylla got a little of my emotional and calculating side? The doctor nods and corrects his glasses. He is said to be the best one available and takes horrendous sums of money for his attention. Coincidentally he is also the same person who treated me when I was a kid. Does that mean that Melon went to great lengths for me even when she didn't really know me yet? I've seen to her physical injuries and I hope that I'll have her awake by tomorrow. He flips through several sheets of paper. That's not enough. I gesture at Sadina. That's not what I meant. Don't you see her body? Why didn't she take proper care of herself? Scylla grasps my hand from beside me. I am sorry. I don't know what came over me. At some point I should have realized her strange state and stopped. It's no excuse. I shake my head and open my mind to her. That's not your fault. You aren't the one to blame. I just want to understand what's going on. Thanks. The doc starts flipping pages again. I was informed of my patient's extraordinary circumstances. Sadhana is a perfect example for a technomage who lost her way. She is a driven, maniacal individual. I can totally imagine her neglecting her body for the sake of her goals. Melon steps closer to Sadhana and balls her hands into fists. Can we be sure that it really is her? Doc nods. Oh, of that I am very sure. I've taken a very careful look at the old medical records and the cloned bodies which she used to confuse you. He gestures at Sadhana. It's her. There are some genetic markers which decay with age. It would be very hard to create a body which has them exactly as they should be. This is without doubt Sadhana Alvar. I squint my eyes at my mother. I don't believe it. Something is fishy. I was a derailed person too, and I am very sure that I know how a maniac sounds like. This body. She is far gone and insane, but she is focused on proving that technomages are at least as strong as other mages in all aspects. Wherever she got that idea from. Why did she let herself go like that? It doesn't match her form of insanity. It doesn't fit the picture. Then I focus on the doctor. Wake her up. We have to know where the virus is. Doc's expression turns sad. I am sorry. But that's how it is with technomages who walk over the edge. There doesn't have to be rationality in all their actions. Wake her up. Now. I order him this time. He blinks and steps closer to Sadhana, pulling a syringe from his coat. It will be temporary at best, you don't have much time. The drug which I used to put her to sleep has to degrade naturally. The needle wanders inside the flexible tube of Sadhana's drip. Then it doesn't take long until her eyes flutter open and she looks around, wincing in pain upon realizing that her body is still battered and bruised. Ed steps closer. Where is the virus, Sadhana? She starts smiling. Where is the virus? Wasn't it obvious from the start? A chuckle escapes her lips. I am honestly surprised that you didn't realize it at all. Was using myself as a distraction that effective? I raise an eyebrow. What have you done? What every good scientist does. I've put my invention to good use. A tool needs to be used. There is no point in having it if you don't use it. While all your attention was directed on hunting me, I hacked Ether's long-range teleportation chamber and sent one of my facsimiles to the teleportation node through which we entered Sol during the hunt. My facsimile hacked the node and deployed the virus on a Draza frontier world. Of course the facsimile was programmed to destroy itself after infecting the first Draza it encountered. Melon gasps and covers her mouth. Everyone among the present people has a similar reaction. Except for me. I don't see a problem with exterminating the Drazi. But I see another problem. A step brings me right next to Sadhana. That's not possible. I programmed the network functions of the nodes. You can't hack them. They are the most secure, man-made devices ever to exist. Then I run through a list of possibilities how Sadhana could have gotten unnoticed access to a node. If her story is true. There is only one possibility. And that's having a master passcode. I reach for Sadhana's shoulder. Whom are you working for? Nobody, her eyes drift closed. Working, always, alone. I shake her, but she is out cold again. The doctor stops me from trying to wake her up, so I turn to him as some of the puzzle's pieces fall into place. What are the possible reasons for Sadhana's state? He blinks. Her mental issues, obviously. I don't understand. What are the possible causes for her mental issues despite the fact that she is a techno-mage? I ask. Doc starts scratching his chest. Brain damage, tumor, though I already checked for that. Her insanity, obviously. I lean closer, remembering my mental contact with some of the Drazi. What if someone pushed her over the edge? You mean, someone manipulated her mind? Doc's eyes widen and bites his lower lip. She was involved in illegal activities. Normally I don't treat patients like that. Let me get some devices. If someone nudged her mind around, there have to be at the very least some faint traces. He leaves the room. I pull a chair closer and sit down, trying to order the facts in my brain. Ed follows the doctor with his gaze until he vanishes on the corridor. What are you thinking, Gideon? I shake my head. I am just collecting another piece of the puzzle. Then I raise the fingers of my left hand one by one. First. Sadhana may be extraordinary. A genius. But how did she escape the authorities for over 2 decades? How did she manage to never get onto any records? Second. Her insanity was always very convenient for a certain group of people. Ed wants to say something, but I stop him. She stopped a broadcast attempt by the Revelation Wing to Earth. I know, the hacking attempt failed, but is that really coherent with her otherwise legendary skills at evading the authorities? She practically crippled the actions of the Revelation Wing by stealing their funds. She created me, telling me where to find the remains of the Revelation Wing. She sets me up as the governor of Ether, though that happened just because of indirect suggestions. She followed us to Gathering Station, playing secret agent and stealing information for her own. Why? She never before did something that risky. She uses the information to eradicate a danger to our species. Aren't all of her actions up until now very convenient for us? Her only real crime up until now is this so-called failed experiment of hers and the way she treats other beings. But can someone really say that she did more evil than good? I don't want to say that she redeemed herself, she is still a bitch. But isn't she doing a lot of strange stuff for a villain? The doctor returns with a thin metal net in his hands and places it on Sadana's head. Then he starts manipulating a screen next to her bed and pictures of her brain appear. I ignore the procedure and return my attention to Ed. I need to know more about this first experiment and if there were other people involved. Did Sadana work on her own? What about friends, teachers, other researchers? You must have made detailed research and files of everyone in her vicinity. I scratch my chin. And the most important question, is any one of them an elder or the governor of a colony right now? Ed draws in a deep breath and pulls a phone from his pocket. Since he isn't a techno-mage, he needs a device to interact with the net. I have to check my research files. But I hope you aren't suggesting what I think. I am suggesting nothing. I am just proposing a theory. To activate the teleportation nodes you need the access codes. The only ones who should have them are the elders and government officials. She is brainwashed. The doctor suddenly proclaims and I hurry to get to his side. Is that sure? We need proof. Can you tell what exactly was done to her? I batter him with questions. Oh, quite sure. He takes a pencil from his lab coat's pocket and points out some sections of the colorful picture which shows Sadana's brain. See here and here? Those areas are much too active. This only occurs if someone is under strong mental stress and an inner conflict. A strong indicator that there is indeed something wrong. But I can't say what at this moment. I am not a telepath. I will make sure to contact a good team of specialists. Picking around inside someone's psyche is a very delicate matter. If you just waltz in there and start rummaging around, it is very likely to do more harm than good. By the ever-dark blood magic. Ed throws his phone to the ground and starts stomping onto it. It's Sanguine. The techno-mage elder. Hedian joins the conversation for the first time, a tone of disbelief in his voice. Yes. He is a head researcher at the university. His field of research is gravity magic, exactly like Sadana's project. In fact, he still works in the same faculty during his free time. They must have known each other. But I don't understand. I see the connection, but he has no motive. Ed gestures pleadingly at me. I lick over my lips. Someone once said to me that Sadana would be an elder right now if she wasn't a crazy bitch. Ed halts dead in his tracks. That was me. How could I be so blind? There can be only one elder of each affinity, and if Sadana took the test. I nod. But how to prove the theory? If it's true, then he has to ghost her. Ed grumbles. That earns him a few troubled looks, so he explains further. Look at her. How much longer would she have lasted? Whatever form of influence he had on her, this was intended as her last mission. Why else would she use herself as a distraction to deploy the virus? The elders as a whole would have never agreed to using a bioweapon. Sanguine must have hoped that we kill her. I turn back to my mother. I guess we should hurry up and have those specialists take a very deep look into that brain of hers. 80 Shadow of the past. Most people are prisoners. A cage doesn't need bars of steel. A cage doesn't need to be around you. That's why they don't realize that they are caged. They are prisoners of their imagination. So they need others to tell them what's right and wrong. Unknown. Soul, Ether, 31 years ago. Sadana. This formula doesn't work, no matter what I do. I pivot my chair to look at the miniature singularity which is hovering in the center of my laboratory. 4 spikes on robotic arms stabilize the singularity from each of the room's corners and provide safety in case of malfunctions. The singularity itself is too small to be visible. All I can see is the effect which is caused by the lensing effect which is caused by the gravitation. If I were able to get this to work, it would solve all our energy issues. But right now I am still at a point where I need more energy to keep the singularity stable than I can harvest from it. In theory I should be able to generate radiation by throwing mass into the event horizon of my gravitational anomaly. Calling it a real singularity is wrong, but it's the closest to the real thing without inventing a new designation. The problem lies in making it strong enough to break up the mass while gaining a surplus of energy. Right now the entire process is less than efficient. Nobody would want to deal with the additional effort of generating the complicated spells to create the singularity while having to keep it in check. I sigh. At least it is stable right now. Either I have to find a way to capture the generated energy better, or I have to make the formation spells even more efficient. Even if my research doesn't blossom into a new energy source, the miniature gravitational lens might be usable to improve optic sensor arrays. A look at the clock tells me that I am late. I shut down the computer and set the machinery which projects the singularity to automatic stabilization. The spikes which are responsible for the stabilizing effect fold back to their safety positions. It would be too much of a hassle to shut down the entire singularity each day. I would have to dissipate the energy slowly over a time period of several hours. Otherwise the compressed matter would cause an explosion upon releasing the pressure too fast. I am not working with a lot of mass, just a few micrograms. But that means that the energy inside the spell formation could still cause a sizable explosion. I collect my stuff and set out to meet with Edward. Then I leave the lab and lock the room with my security code. I am really excited about our meeting because I invested a lot of time in training with my mother. Once Edward hears about my new skills in regards to shrouding magic, he will have no other choice than to admit that technomages have their strengths. His entire reasoning for ending our relationship sounds fishy in the first place. It seems like he wants to push me away because he wants to protect me. I understand that he is aiming for a government position in law enforcement. Those jobs can get quite dangerous at times. Especially since the Revelation Wing is turning more aggressive recently. But Ed also has to understand that I don't care for the danger and that I am my own person. Wherever he might end up, I don't care as long as I can be with him. I exit the building with the university's research labs and head towards the plaza. It is a busy evening and there are a lot of people on the street. I smile at a pair whom I know personally. They aren't quite friends to me, but during classes we shared a table for several months. That's when a burst of air suddenly tilts my world sideways. I and many other people stumble as the gravity suddenly decides to change and for a brief moment I fall. Not towards the ground, but back towards the building I just exited half a minute ago. An explosion tears my world apart and I am pushed away as the entire building is torn asunder. With horror I realize that something must have gone wrong. What have I done? While I tumble end over end through the air I come to the conclusion that the explosion must have been caused by my own research. I was the only one who played with gravity. As I watch, the pair whom I know is hit by one of the building's fragments and buried beneath it. I want to scream, but my ability only allows me to watch the moment in slow motion. Everything is happening too fast for my body to react. I can't even cast a spell. In silent resignation I close my eyes and hope for a quick death. It would be easier than what I would have to endure by the authorities after causing the death of so many. Then I hit a wall on the opposite side of the street and the world turns blissfully dark. I open my eyes and scream. Everything hurts. Then I remember and notice that I wasn't knocked out for long. The remains of the research faculty are burning and there are people on the street, trying to help others who scream and mourn like myself. No professional personnel has arrived yet. Somehow I manage to get to my knees. What have I done? Tears sting my eyes and I find myself stumbling towards a side street, shrouding myself with a spell. A few streets later the strength leaves my feet and I lean against a wall, sliding to the ground. I cover my face with my hands and realize that I have a big laceration on my forehead. A mad laugh escapes me and I realize that the tears are my own blood running down my face. After a while I stop and gasp for air. What's wrong with me? Why did I run? Aren't I making everything worse? I didn't think. But I don't have time to explore the reasoning behind my actions. Sadina? Are you okay? A deep, male voice sounds from directly in front of me and I look up, realizing that I am not alone anymore. An elderly mage with white hair is standing in front of me. I try to get up, but fail. Sanguine? What are you doing here? The elder kneels down and cups my chin in his hand, looking at my wound. I was looking for you. We have to treat the injury. I push his hand away and this time I want to cry for real. Out of shock, out of anguish. It is my fault. You were right when you said that my research is too dangerous. They are dead. I try to wipe the tears and the blood out of my face. My head hurts more and more as the adrenaline slowly stops working. You made a mistake. That doesn't mean that your life is over. Sanguine answers. I chuckle. Oh, please. I bent the rules and practiced dangerous research on campus grounds. There must have been several deaths at the site and even more wounded. They will have my head for this. At the very least they will wipe my memories. I can't let that happen. I had so many plans. I will forget Ed. My friends. My life. I could help you. Sanguine places a hand on my shoulder. If they are condemning you for performing that research, then I also have to take the blame because I knew about it. I didn't warn you off strongly enough. Work for me. If we redeem ourselves, then we might be forgiven. I have a plan. His voice sounds soothing and reassuring. My heart tightens in my chest when I think about my meeting with Ed. How? If you achieve something great they might forgive you. Become my secret agent in taking down the Revelation Wing. He bites onto his lower lip. But not as you are now. The current you wouldn't be able to achieve that goal. You are too, his voice trails off. I wipe the blood out of my eyes and find my hand shivering uncontrollably. Say it. I am a wreck. Aren't I? The Revelation Wing has certain selection criteria. I'll have to prepare your mind for you to infiltrate their organization. Then I'll provide you with an escape route and a way to get into contact with them. He reaches for my temples. You have to let your guard down. I promise that I'll work hard in order for you to regain your life. There are people in history who were forgiven worse for great accomplishments. I am confused. Why? I try to focus, but the headache makes it really hard to think logically. Just relax. I'll make the pain go away. Sanguine lightly touches my head with his cool hands and the pain indeed eases a little. Then our minds make contact and I feel the tendrils of his mind invading my inner self. It's nothing like the contact I had with Edward. Edward was open where Sanguine is keeping me away. Then he suddenly rips at me, shoving around desires and intentions. It feels like I am torn apart while he tries to reforge the being who calls herself Sadina. I claw at his mind, but he is hiding behind a firm wall of concentration while I in return let my guard completely down. My fight was already lost before it began. I curse my weakness, my pain. How could I have been so stupid because of a few injuries? What is he trying to do? Sanguine tears out my ambitions and replaces them with a desire to destroy everything which threatens my society, no matter the cost. New knowledge appears inside my head. Access codes, names, places. Then I realize that I am nothing more than a tool to him. One to be discarded once it has outlived its usefulness. I scream and try to shove him away, but his grip on me is too strong. I lash out with everything I have. All I get is a short reprieve. Hastily I correct the damage he has done. Remembering the lessons with my mother I cast a fine web of connections over my mind to slow him down. I shrink in on myself to protect the core of my being, hiding inside a self-imposed cage of wool. A small safety copy of myself so to speak, a hidden drive. A mirror image inside my mind. I activate all diversion tactics I can think of. This is the worst scenario. Something all telepaths fear. Then Sanguine's mind returns and resumes his work, editing the other me as he wishes. I still try to fight him, but all I manage is a little nudge here and a small change there. He isn't trying to make me into a slave or a zombie. If he did so, the other me wouldn't be able to act as his unknowing agent. The other me gets changed while all I can do is watching in horror. This is worse than being a slave. I am a split personality who doesn't even know that it is working for someone else. Despite my horror I try to fight him. I plant a hidden suggestion here, a wish there. Everything from within the safety of my cage, hoping that he doesn't notice my diversion. It is a hope for the future, no more, no less. He sets a set of instructions which allows him to influence the other me without her knowledge. His perfect agent, not even knowing that she is one. Halfway during the process I realize that his instructions are far too precise. He must have done it before. Is he the one who caused my singularity to go out of control? He must have planned it. Why else would he have all those details for my escape readily at hand? And the contacts with the Revelation Wing. In the end I managed to divert one of his manipulations into a wish which could be the seed for his downfall. A determination to create the strongest techno-mage. The best of them all. One who can only end at the top. To get to the top of the pyramid he will have to push someone else off of it. A bitter smile forms on my lips. Sanguine finishes his work with a smile. Another agent of stability. He gets to his feet and walks away. No. The other me awakes from its paralysis and gets to her knees. I see through her eyes, feel through her skin. I try to retake control, but nothing happens. I am caged inside my own mind while the other me which was forged to Sanguine's expectations stands up and walks down the street. She has a plans and a goals, not even knowing that they don't belong to her. They belong to Sanguine and, in a small part, they belong to me. How she will realize those wishes and ambitions is entirely up to her. A smile steals itself onto her face. She has so much to do, so she walks faster. I rattle at the bars of the mental cage which is protecting the real me and imprisoning it at the same time. From here on all I can do is watch. Then I scream. 81 Atropos. It takes just a pebble, but once set in motion it is hard to stop the avalanche. Unknown. Soul, Ether. Gideon. The recorded memory ends and the woman who brought us the news switches off the screen. She is the leader of the 5 mind medics who were called in after our doctor admitted that mental damage is outside his field of expertise. The mind medic, Reina Freebu, had to take us through a painfully long explanation of what she is intending to do to Sadana and how. Apparently messing with someone's mind is a very delicate matter and causes a lot of legal issues. Even so, I didn't expect that several telepaths working together have that much potential. Even recording a memory that old for everyone to watch like a movie. Admittedly. The small things were a little hazy around the edges, like having a very detailed dream. As I understood it they are working with so many people to ensure that their combined will is stronger than the patient's and to act as a witness for each other. In the end Sadana's parents, Melon and Hedion, had to sign 12 papers which mainly protected the mind medics from legal repercussions for interfering with Sadana's mind. Though all they have done so far is exploring her memories and mental faculties. So that's her current state. Reina concludes. We've practically 2 minds of sentient status inside Sadana's body. In addition both minds are native to that very same body with various degrees of fault for certain crimes. To be honest, I am not sure of what to do. Since you requested absolute secrecy and this is obviously a serious crime, no less committed by one of our elders, I am walking on very thin ice for not making this public right away. I rub my temples and think of my own time in isolation. In a certain way Sadana shared the same fate as me, just worse. She had no internet. I can't imagine such an existence. It was hell when Melon cut my internet access when I was a child. The months right after my rescue from Earth were the most boring time of my life. All she could do was watch the actions of her twisted persona. What about the caged personality? Ed asks with serious concern. The mind medic scratches her head. She is quite insane at this point, though if you allow us drastic measures we might be able to restore her to a working state. 30 years in isolation did her no good. Maybe we can detach the memories which are most stressful from her emotions and turn them to pure data. It's the least invasive measure. As I see it you have 3 choices. She raises a first finger. We could wipe her completely and try to install a new manufactured version by using the 2 originals as a base, but yet I see on your faces that you don't like that one. A second finger comes up. We could try to integrate both personalities into each other, which would make their legal status completely unclear. I am against that one since it would be punishing the resulting personality for crimes she didn't really commit. A third finger is raised. We could make a backup of either personality and delete it completely. Then we try to repair the other one. I raise both eyebrows. If mental medical techniques are that powerful, then why do we go through all the trouble of raising young technomages that carefully? Can't we just correct them as we wish? Reina looks at me like I am an imbecile. The personalities of children aren't fully formed. You can't influence what isn't there. We would end up with a lot of very similar personalities without diverseness. I raise both hands to signal defeat. I am a hacker. A code geek. My first attempts at interfering with others' minds ended in their utter obliteration. Sorry for asking. She winces and turns around to take a look at her 4 colleagues who assisted her in assessing Sadana's condition. Then she turns back to us and looks especially at me. I think I speak for my whole team if I tell you that we aren't happy about being pulled into this mess. Even if we are just confidants. Her four colleagues nod in unison and I frown. Do they have some kind of mind sharing going on? What happens to you if you work in unison with 5 people to mess with a person's mind? Isn't that worse than what Scylla and I are sharing if you think about the long-term effects? We are often dealing with legal issues and hold pride in our discreetness. That comes with the job. But this is several leagues above our heads. Mental manipulation, genetic manipulation, conspiracy within the government, most likely causing the extinction of an entire race, murder and removal of witnesses, death of innocent bystanders. Just one of those crimes can earn a mental death sentence and installation of a new personality. Her eyes wander to Ed. Ed clicks with his tongue. I'll have to speak to my superiors and come clean with them. This is too big, even for me. Are you at least sure that Sanguine doesn't know that we know what's going on? She stands straighter. Don't insult us. We scanned her memories very thoroughly and she isn't some kind of remote-controlled robot. Sanguine's influence only went as far as giving small commands over a secure line. He tried very hard to cut any loose ends which could lead towards him. She is even equipped with a suicide wish once she is in danger of being captured. Though that safety line was thwarted by the fact that she was taken out almost instantly. The medic's eyes wander to Scylla. I am afraid that we have nothing aside from her memories to connect her to Sanguine. Scylla's expression immediately lights up. So I saved her life then. Reyna winces. You could have stopped after the first hit. Her memory of waking up afterwards wasn't a pleasurable experience. Good. Scylla answers without hesitation. Ed takes a deep sigh. The question is what to do next. He pulls out his mobile phone and walks towards the door. You all stay here. This information doesn't leave the room. I have to call my superiors. He leaves and closes the door behind him. With that Scylla, Melon, Hedion and I are alone with the 6 doctors. My cousins left before the mind medics arrived. Hedion walks over and strokes Sadena's hair. What are the chances to save the imprisoned personality? If I understood you correctly, then the personality which ruled Sadena's actions from the day of the accident is just a twisted copy. Reyna shrugs her shoulders. Wording it like that is way too easy and self-deceiving. She is Sadena, a Sadena with different priorities than the one you knew before that. Wait. I raise a hand. I am not that good with this mind stuff. Aside from leeching off of someone's memories and leaving them as a broken wreck. Maybe I should gain some knowledge in the field. But I will leave that to later. But it sounded very much like the Sadena I know and the original are very different persons. The medic takes a deep breath. That's exactly why I would like to have a full wagon load of lawyers behind me right this moment. They are the same person and yet they aren't. I am not sure that there is any legal precedent to what happened to Sadena. The original is certainly to blame for performing dangerous research on school grounds. If the accident is actually her fault has yet to be determined. The reconstructed version of Sadena is to blame for everything she did afterwards. But in a certain way she did those things only because of Sanguine's influence. If we look at it that way she is as much as the offender as the victim. As I said, I would like to call a lawyer. Hedion ruffles his hair. How did that bastard even get that skilled at mind manipulation? You guys are working with 5 people. He was alone. Reyna tilts her head. It could be his mutation. Though he went to great lengths to create a situation in which Sadena would lower her guard. As I said, we have no proof that he caused the explosion, but everything which happened afterwards is much too organized. He is also very old and that comes with a lot of experience. Maybe he worked as a mind medic at some point in his life. Nonetheless his work was flawed. He didn't manage to wipe her memories completely and she managed to trick him to a certain extent. Given that I had a lot time to prepare myself I could have done the same in his situation, though it would have taken me much longer. We work as a team to ensure that such mistakes don't happen. That's when Ed returns. I've sent word up the chain of command. He seats himself on a close-by chair. This is one unholy, fucking mess I don't want to deal with when an alien alliance is pulling at our arms while a flock of killer hamsters is gnawing at our feet. What can we do against Sanguine? I ask. No matter what happens to her, I gesture at Sadena, this Sanguine fellow is someone I don't want to have as my elder. How do we get rid of him? I still believe that he chose Sadena for this nasty stunt because she threatened his position. That may mean that I am next. Can we simply walk up to him and pull it out of his memories? No. Ed grasps the armrest of his chair. We have just one person's memories. No hard evidence. They'll say that Sadena's memories were edited. That's not enough to make it stick against an elder. Sanguine is one of the more influential ones on top. We have to do this in a way that doesn't allow him an escape. New elections are taken every 10 years. It will take some time to replace him the normal way. Scylla mumbles and reaches for her chin. I doubt that the system will choose him again after being involved in such an accusation. His career is finished either way. No matter what he does. Ed shakes his head and answers with a viscous voice. I don't want his career. I want him. You have no idea how long I hunted Sadena, how many sleepless nights I had because of this. And now I learn that the one whom I once loved was mentally raped like this. Challenge him. Melon grumbles. Search Sadena's memories for her hidey hole, get the messages he sent to influence her. Then openly accuse him of violating his office. We don't need proof. We just need someone who can prove that Sanguine is unfit for his job. Once he is out of his office we can order a full mental scan. Challenge. I ask, not liking where this is going. Why does this sound like some medieval duel to prove who is strongest and whoever wins is in the right? It's not really a duel. Scylla takes my hand and locks her fingers with mine. It's just a way to ensure that the system isn't corrupt. An elder should be the most skilled individual of his trade and have certain objectives. Like the protection of his society. She turns to lock eyes with me. You are a governor. That's just one rank under being an elder. If you doubt Sanguine's qualifications in public, you can request a direct comparison of your skills and ambitions. I roll my eyes. Oh, please. What would that accomplish? I already took the test to get a job and that made me a governor. What does it help if I beat him in skill without having the needed psych evaluation? Are you sure that your ambitions are still the same as when you and Scylla didn't have someone to care for? Hedion points at Scylla's belly. Maybe something changed inside that stubborn head of yours. Now you grasp at straws. I shake my head. I may care for my family and close friends. I care for Ether because I live here. Society itself is of no concern to me as long as it doesn't affect one of the former. Reyna raises her hand. Having Sanguine as an elder suddenly sounds very undesirable to me and my team. If concern for his society is all he needs, we could arrange that. It just requires a little nudging and twisting of his priorities. Not too much of a manipulation. Many people who are depressed because of their personality request such small adjustments from us. He has to sign a few papers and pay us, then it's a done deal. Such small things are not much more than a facelifting. Ambitions and priorities change naturally over time if they aren't forced upon the psyche. Many people do it. All eyes turn to me. No, I shake my head. I am sane. Saner than sane. I won't let somebody mess with my head. That's an absolute no. The medic tilts her head. I promise it won't hurt at all. My team and I are the best at what we do. You won't even notice that you are a little different. We can reverse the change afterwards, no problem. We never got to take a good look into a governor's head. People in government positions normally have immunity against mental interrogation. Good to know. Then as long as I stay governor, nobody can legally take a look at my memories. Melon gets up and walks closer, making sure that she has eye contact. Gideon? That person hurt Sadana, and in retrospect he also hurt me. A lot. Do you really want to let someone like that go without punishing him yourself? Scylla joins her. Because of him Aurelia was in danger. We have to rip off his limbs and feed them to him bit by bit. Several eyes switch to Scylla. Is everyone against me? Ah. Fuck it. If it is Melon, I can't say no. I turn to the medic. Just make it so that I barely pass the psych evaluation. Don't change anything else. I am not interested in becoming some kind of messiah. 82 losses. 679:89307, Draza fleet detected in sensor grid 23-45-25. Endangered planets on their route, Forlorn Colony Jihen 91001, Forlorn Colony Sargass 86228, Sol 0. Galactic history. Sol, Ether. Gideon. I don't feel any different. Once more I try to explore my inner feelings, but there is no change as far as I am concerned. At least nothing noticeable. It's fine. I checked myself and they did exactly what they promised to do. Scylla's voice echoes through my mind and I try to relax. There is just one problem. I am not good with facial expressions, but Reyna and her team look like they are troubled. I get up from the bed next to Sadana's where I had to lie down for the procedure. You don't look like you are happy about what you've done to me. What went wrong? Reyna raises an eyebrow and forces a smile onto her face, as do her four companions. No, nothing. We did exactly as you wished and now you will pass the psych evaluation. The fact that you don't feel different is perfectly fine. It means that our intervention went without incident. But, I ask. Your mind is most disconcerting. A man out of Reyna's team answers. Yes. Please come back for further treatment once you are done with Sanguine. One of the women interjects. The remaining two team members, a man and a woman, nod in unison. These guys give me the shivers. They are acting like that binary whom I met on Gathering Station. Gideon is fine as he is. Scylla closes her arms around my head and hugs me. I wouldn't want him to be any other way. Reyna starts gesturing with her hands. But how can you say that? His mind is a total mess. You have to know as his partner. You must have been in there. It's like walking a fine line between madness and being a computer. It's not a mess, it's just, sorted out. Yes, that's the right way to put it. He simply sorted it out and neatly separated his feelings from his logical thinking. He has already proven that someone like that can function normally. Scylla rebukes them. If you say so. The experience of connecting to such a mind was very uncomfortable. The mind medic who spoke up reaches for his head. He did that a lot since he was nosing through my mind. A migraine? Reyna nods. Yes. Now I understand why all the Draza whose minds he read turned into nothing more than vegetables. Hold a moment, you were involved with the Draza prisoners? What do you think about them? I ask. It's the perfect opportunity to get a second opinion. Instinct-driven animals. Reyna answers without hesitation. I don't understand how they can have a functioning society. Interrogating them was no fun at all. But then again, we aren't paid for understanding the information we got out of them. I purse my lips, imagining what the SDF is doing to the Draza prisoners. My way of interrogation may leave them as vegetables, but given their nature they might be better dead than caught in a cell. Back to topic. What should we do about her? Reyna points at the sleeping Sadana. I would hardly call her sane at this moment, and since I have no lawyer here I would at least want to separate the two personalities from each other and treat the remaining one. just to prevent further harm. Her legal relatives have to decide. Melon reaches for her forehead. I don't know. As you said, it is complicated and I thought my daughter was lost since long ago. Hedian shakes head. To me the decision is clear. Get the twisted version out of her head and try to save the other one. No matter what you may say, the personality who acted as Sadhana for the past 30 years isn't our daughter. You may say that it is her, but to me it is a strange construct which has no place in my daughter's head. It's Sanguine's creation. Restore the imprisoned one as much as you can. Ed nods enthusiastically. Yes. I actually need it to be solved like that. It's the only way. Hedian turns to Ed and squints his eyes. What are you talking about? You don't have to know. Just make it fast. My superior is already on his way. Ed gestures for the mind medics to begin their work. Then we will try to do our best. It was the only sensible path anyway. Reina pulls a handheld quantum computer out of one of her pockets and places it on Sadhana's forehead. Then she and one of her colleagues touch Sadhana's temples while the rest lines up behind them, touching their temples in turn. I already learned from watching their performance earlier that this process can take a while. They are working very slowly and subtly with a lot of patience. Something I never considered. Maybe I shattered the Draza minds and the mind of that blood mage because I worked too fast? That's actually a good theory. It may be the same as with Exo CPU. I have to do it slowly in my next attempt. Ed. What is this maniacal report about a first-class violation of government responsibilities? Two men enter the room. One is a faceless, but his mask sports 3 golden stripes on his forehead. I'll simply call him Stripes. Apparently he is much higher ranked than Ed. Otherwise I doubt that he would speak like that. The other one is Sybil, or Gandalf as I like to call him. I've no other words for it. One of my childhood heroes just turned into reality. Okay, he doesn't have a staff and his robes are much more shiny than in the movies. Gandalf. I am not Gandalf, kid. The old man barks. Compared to me, Gandalf is a street wizard. All he ever did in the movies was waving a stick and blinding people with a little shiny light. I am Sybil Firestorm. If I want to I can conjure up a nuclear fire which eats this whole colony in no time. Okay. I turn to Ed. What is an elder doing here? I turn back to Sybil. And how do you know Lord of the Rings? Sybil clears his throat. My little niece, 12 generations removed, is a big fan. I had to watch all the movies with her, remakes included. But enough of that. Why am I here? It doesn't happen every day that I am called out of my office at Mars and have to take an emergency teleport. I wasn't even given a reason. I like that man. Much more than Sanguine, who forcefully enlisted me into the SDF and turned my mother into a mental wreck. On the other hand, I wouldn't exist without him and he practically dropped Scylla into my lap. Does that make us even? Don't get distracted. This situation is dangerous. Scylla's mind voice returns my attention to the situation at hand. Ed's superior points at Sadhana. Who is that? Ed gets to his feet. He was resting on a chair close to Sadhana. Actually that's Sadhana's body. What? Sybil calls out. My father holds up his hands. Wait. I can explain everything. And the reason why you are here is that you are the only elder whom I am certain of not having any dealings with Sanguine. Sybil visibly forces himself not to spit on the ground. I hate that guy. His silver tongue is much too smooth and somehow he knows of some illegal activities before they occur. If he hadn't control over Soul's mainframe I would have pulled out the carpet from under his feet long ago. And now that I mention it, I don't like you either. Whenever there is a problem which you need an elder for, the first one whom you call is Sanguine. That's just because he gets things done much faster than when I have to grovel in front of the other elders. But that's not important. There are new developments regarding Sadhana. And so Ed starts informing the two of the entire story in a slightly edited version in which I am not that central to the events. Only then it occurs to me that Ed is lying to an elder with a whole bunch of people around him who know the full truth. Well, he isn't really lying, but twisting the truth nonetheless. My eyes wander around but the mind medic are caught in their trance and everyone else doesn't want to risk interfering. It takes a long time to retell the entire story. Unfortunately I can't see the expressions of Ed's superior, but Sybil's face changes through the full spectrum. From white to blue and then even red. In the end Sybil stands there, stroking his beard, left eye twitching uncontrollably. We can't get that bastard on a memory report alone. But if Gideon really challenges Sanguine's qualifications my party can assist that claim to get it through. I shake my head. I am still hoping that there is another way. What do we do if I lose against him? Sybil snorts. Don't make me laugh, kid. I saw you in the news when you messed up that blood mage. Sanguine may be smart and skilled, but if you are half as smart as you have skill, then you can best him. I saw your VR evaluation, just use your speed until Sanguine can't keep up. And Ed is right when he says that getting him out of his office before we accuse him is better. Even if you lose we can still go with the accusation. Of course it will be much harder to make it stick if we can't investigate Sanguine's memories. What about the virus? Ed's superior asks. We have to do something about it. And what exactly do you propose? Sybil snorts. If we make it public we will alert Sanguine. Blast the planet in question to pieces. Melon asks. I shake my head. And how exactly would that not alert Sanguine? Not to mention that we would betray ourselves to the aliens in case that the virus already spread beyond the planet. It would be very suspicious if we blast the point of origin of the virus a few hours after it started spreading from there. Everyone would ask how we knew. That's not an option. Only all the elders together can decide to use the teleportation nodes as weapons. Zabil's eyes wander to Sadana. But what to do about the problem which is in reach? All those crimes allow only one judgment, no matter her reasons. In a way it was still her. Of course. Sadana will be judged for her actions. Ed answers without hesitation and I turn towards him, doubting my ears. Melon wants to say something when she is interrupted by the 5 mind medics who end Sadana's treatment. Reina reaches for the handheld computer on Sadana's forehead and picks it up, holding it very carefully. We are done. That's perfect. Ed runs forward and snatches the handheld out of Reina's hands. That's the twisted Sadana. He doesn't even wait for Reina's approval and returns to his superior. Here, Sadana. Neatly packaged for transport. Stripes takes the device slowly and carefully, then his eyes wander back to Sadana. Ed. You know that this is. What you have there is the twisted Sadana. Ed points at Sadana. The personality that remains inside that body did nothing more than committing dangerous research on campus grounds. We aren't even sure if she can be held responsible for the explosion. And even if, she already suffered a 30-year sentence in her very own prison. Punishing her a second time would be just wrong. Stripes tilts his head in thought, then he speaks with a warning voice. You have one of those days of twisted logic again, Ed. I'll owe you a favor. Ed answers with a grave voice. I can already feed a fusion reactor with your favors, Ed. Free access to the database, Orbit 1, Lunar Space Station. Do you remember? Or even better. The Revelation Wing base. All favors you will have a hard time to pay back. Then Stripes pockets the device and crosses his arms in front of his chest. But I guess the hero who took down the Revelation Wing deserves a favor here and there. That was me. I cleaned up that asteroid base. Now I want to strangle Ed. Don't say a word. Let Ed have the glory if it helps him to protect Satanisilla interrupts my thoughts. Yes. Yes, I know. But it still bugs me, I answer, grinding my teeth. Ahem. If that's all of the bad news, I'll go and prepare the other elders. I suppose you will file your complaint right away, Gideon. Zabil addresses me. I nod and activate my VR for a short moment. Then I take my time to file a nice and long complaint about Sanguine and the inadequacies of having an old, senile politician as an elder. In addition, I point out that he is already with one foot in his grave and that he handled the Oibras incident very badly despite having access to the mainframe. When I am done, I forward the document to the government network. Done. Zabil turns around and leaves the room. Fucking technomages. Cheaters altogether. I wish I could write a report in the blink of an eye. Right he is. Stripes mumbles and follows Zabil. Don't forget that you owe me, Ed. He is just jealous. Reina crosses her arms in front of her chest. Now, do you want to know the status of the patient or are government affairs more important? When nobody answers, she simply continues speaking. We removed the manipulated personality and freed the caged one. Then we tried to stabilize her by suppressing the memories of her imprisonment. She will slowly remember bit by bit as she learns to deal with her experiences. That's why initially she won't know anything about Gideon, Sodden, Galia, or Scylla. To her, she lost consciousness soon after being caged inside her mind prison. She will still have to deal with the shit that happened to her once she starts remembering, but I think she is at least not likely to commit suicide if the memories return while she can interact with people. Though I assume that she will have a mental breakdown once the more mortifying memories return. I suggest for her parents to take care of her and that she sees nobody else until she gets to terms with herself. We also would like to have 1 or 2 more sessions with her to check our work. Melon returns to Sadana's side and strokes her head. I'll be there when she wakes up. How do you feel about that? Scylla whispers from my side. I shrug my shoulders. Indifferent. I didn't care much about Sadana until she became dangerous. And whoever that other personality may be, she isn't my mother. I know her even less than the manipulated version. To me, Melon is my mother and that will never change. My eyes wander to the door and I realize that a certain someone probably just vanished out of my life for good. Will I ever miss the psychological discussions with Sadana while she was posing as my school's counselor? 830010 equals 2. The first internet was based on slow electronic computer systems and lasted for a little less than 1,500 years. Remnants of that network can be watched in Ether's historic museum, where an old archaeological site shows how the telecommunication cables ran under streets and from house to house. With the advent of quantum computing, all that ended overnight. The wireless possibility of transferring data directly by interlocking a set of quantum particles with each other made all that unnecessary. Nowadays communication speed isn't limited by your connection, but by the size of the communicating devices. Galactic history. Soul, Ether. Scylla. Welcome home. XO greets me upon entering the living room. Isn't Gideon with you? I thought everything went well at the hospital. No and yes. As soon as we returned home, Gideon ran off for some obscure reason. He didn't even deem it necessary to tell me what he is up to. I grumble. One might think that being partners in crime and in bed counts for something. I am spreading my legs for him, so he could at least try to keep me up to date. But Gideon still has those moments when he suddenly gets a weird idea and starts setting things in motion without telling people about it. Or he gets on a trip and starts creating all those weird conspiracy theories. He is very much like Ed in that regard. Maybe not with the conspiracy theories, but certainly with the hidden plans. Probably that shouldn't surprise me. Ed is also a schemer and some of his genetic code is now in Gideon. Like father like son. I've the honor to inform you that Aurelia is making great progress in regards to language since she can't zap me anymore. I am trying to hold my lessons in a playful manner, combining them with basic programming exercises to assist her talents. EXO announces and floats to the cradle. Sometimes it surprises me how fast some organic beings change their opinion of someone. In one moment they regard you as plaything and in the next you are a counselor. Mom. Aurelia calls out with her tiny voice. Her vocal cords don't allow for much more at the moment, but I can guess what she wants. Yes, honey. I walk over and pick her up. Cradling her in my arms I head for the sofa to sit down. Closing my eyes I activate my VR and connect to Aurelia's mind. A moment later I find myself inside an empty, white room. A 7-year-old child with shoulder-length, black hair is clinging to my knees. Not that. I was hungry. She mumbles. But the VR fixes that too. She reaches out and an ice cream cone appears in her hands. Then she starts licking. I sigh. What did I tell you about eating inside a VR? I'll feed you once we are outside. She looks at the ground. That it is bad to satiate bodily needs inside the VR. Nonetheless she continues nibbling on the ice cream. This representation of Aurelia fits her mental age much better than her real body. I smile and kneel down to hug her. How are you doing with your studies and physical training? She pouts. I still can't crawl. And talking with my real body is a pain. The throat hurts. I would like to spend much more time inside the VR with you and Dad. Can't we stay here forever? I ruffle up her hair. That's not possible. You have to train your body. That's what most technomages neglect. I hope you always follow EXO's orders. She huffs and sits down on the ground. Yes, but it's still boring. All I can do is listen and wriggle with my arms and legs. I smile. You might not understand it right now, but wriggling with your arms and legs is the whole point of the exercise. And we can't allow you to use accelerated VR while you are alone. Would you even want to be alone in here? I make a gesture which encloses the empty room. I am sure that you will survive it. And in the evening we can play until you get tired. She sighs and answers no, I don't want to be alone. And if EXO continues to give me so many tasks I'll be too tired to play. She pouts, but I can see that the prospect of playing games with Gideon and me is exciting her, so I try to sweeten her workout time a little more. If you don't fall behind with your studies I might lose Gideon's password for the file server with all his movies. At least the section which is suitable for children. Her eyes light up immediately. Really? I nod. It might be somewhere in the master server's trash depositories. But you have to find it yourself. Her expression drops. He always uses those nasty firewalls to shield the master server. They really burn when you touch them. Aurelia rubs her chubby hands together with a pained expression on her face. I raise an inquisitive eyebrow and look down on her. Then her eyes widen. Of course, not that I have first-hand experience. I was just watching from afar and imagined that it must hurt. Blatant lie. The security only activates when someone actually tries to access the server. Otherwise the entire infrastructure looks like it is completely unprotected. I thought they don't activate as long as nobody trespasses. Something starts working inside her head and she evades my eyes. I used EXO as a probe. Why are you asking me for a way out of your own web of lies? I snort and take the ice cream. That's punishment for lying to your mother. Aurelia draws a sharp breath upon losing the candy and I grin. Have you ever tried to delete a file on your slave server and then writing it the entire way to the master server's trash folder? Dad's security doesn't check those files. Aurelia asks astounded. No. Why bother? The trash folder is a quarantine zone, nothing gets out and you can't execute programs from within it because they just display and read as binary data. But I guess finding something as simple as a text file won't be a challenge. All you have to do is search for the header and copy what comes afterwards. I shrug my shoulders and smile. Giving Aurelia a little motivational homework while neither Gideon nor I have time is the best way to occupy her. Her eyes narrow. I have to code something to hold the port open and read the trash folder. Otherwise I'll be stuck inside the trash folder. I pat her head. Such a smart child. Soul, ether. Gideon. I lean back in my office chair and put my feet on the desk. Finally 5 minutes of rest with nothing on my mind. Ether isn't under lockdown any longer and Zabil will see to it that my complaint is taken seriously. In addition I've dealt with all my office work for today and secured my mental peace. Grasping the tablet computer tighter in my hands I press it to my chest. Hacking the faceless network without ringing any bells was a hideous task. If I hadn't already done my research because of Ed it would have been impossible. The only reason I managed it was because I logged into their internal network over Ed's mobile phone. I hacked the phone a while ago and exchanged the operating system with my own. The faceless internal network is completely disconnected from the quantum net. There is no way to get something in or out without having someone on the inside. And pulling a complete image of T. Satana's personality was a hell of a hacking job. I had to hold the connection open and stay unnoticed while playing cat and mouse with the security AI of the faceless network. They hired a paranoid monster who was even checking the communication between the network and registered user devices. Before I could even attempt to download T. Satana I had to isolate the network devices which transmitted the data to Ed's mobile phone. Then I edited their communication protocols to hide any trace towards Ed's phone. Loading several yottabytes of information took a little time, even with quantum computer at hand. And the mobile phone was a serious bottleneck. I wish Ed had invested in one of the new devices. Nonetheless I managed to copy T. Satana's personality safely to my tablet. Though what to do with it I don't know yet. It's a personality image like those found inside a human brain. It won't run on a quantum computer, I need an actual human brain. Maybe I should have thought about the hardware problem before taking the risk of breaking into a high-security government network to steal a useless file. On the other hand, now I have a copy of her. Whatever the faceless do with their version shouldn't trouble me anymore. Maybe I should try to code a virtual brain to emulate T-Satana on a computer? If that's possible, I could edit her nasty streaks out of her as I wish. Or would that corrupt my relationship with her? I could register her as my personal AI and claim that I programmed it. It would be the perfect explanation. I gnaw on my lower lip, then I open the drawer next to my office table and place the tablet inside. Whatever I decide to do, it has time for later. Right now I have to concentrate on getting rid of Sanguine and dealing with that Draza fleet. Hopefully the new weapons will be ready in time. 84 mainframe. It would be easier to think if I hadn't 100 little men inside my brain. From when the mainframe started talking. Sol, Mars. Gideon. This is so cool. I watch in awe as Zabil guides me, Ed, Melon and Scylla into a huge sphere-like cavern. The walls are entirely made up out of crystals and light seems to pulse through each and every one of them. Zabil fetched us 3 days after I brought forth my complaint against Sanguine and we took a direct teleport to this place. It seems like we are inside a huge, sparkling geode. The crystals at the walls look awfully familiar, yes. Could it be that this is the quartz which makes up the waveguide cores of quantum computers? A quantum computer's infrastructure doesn't operate on electrons and cables, but on light and photons. The logic circuits are etched directly into the magically grown diamond to fracture the light as it is needed. The entire manufacturing process is hideously vulnerable to outside factors. In fact, 9 out of 10 personal quantum computers are discarded during the manufacturing process. What increases the problems with this process is the fine silver wiring which has to be embedded inside the diamond. The fine wires create the runes which enable the quantum entanglement of the photons. Carbon, the raw material for this process, is cheap, but the amount of work and time to create a quantum computer are breathtaking. I don't want to know how much time went into the computer which is spreading around us. We are inside one of the mainframe's quantum cores. Each planet or moon with a big enough colony has at least 2 of them. Scylla explains. When I was small, my parents took me on a guided tour through one. They are the biggest computers in existence. Enough computational power to plan ahead for an entire colony. Zabil nods, guiding us towards the amphitheater which is hanging freely inside the huge geode. A single walkway leads from the entrance point towards the amphitheater. It's also the most secure place on Mars, 10 kilometers under the planet's surface. And the government's seat of power. Whenever there is a big decision to make, all elders gather here to discuss the situation and find the best solution. And then you vote. I ask, amused. Zabil shakes his head. Not really. We look at the possible solutions to the problem and eliminate them one by one until only the best solution to a given problem remains. If it really happens that several solutions hold equal benefits, we chose the simplest and morally most righteous one. Morally. I try my hardest to keep my voice from assuming a mocking tone. Zabil nods knowingly. I know what you think, but it isn't like that. We are no saints. An elder has to swear an oath to protect and guide our society and to keep the population as happy as possible. Of course, that doesn't mean that everything has to be flowers and honey pie. Outsiders and harmful elements like the aliens or the Revelation Wing are of no concern to us. And I certainly won't deny that there are groups with different opinions among the elders. It's something which can't be avoided. With some people you can work together, and with others, his voice trails off. I nod and we pass into the amphitheater which encloses a speaker's platform. Instead of rows of chairs for the audience, there are several working desks with people of all ages. Don't get fooled by their looks, Scylla's mind voice warns me. Sure. Some may look like they are 30, but who can say how old they really are? My grandmother is working hard to complete her 3rd century and she looks like she is in her 20s. If I hadn't known her from childhood on, I would have dirty thou. Careful, Scylla jabs in. Of course I would never think of another ass than the one which belongs to my beloved wife. It's round and perfectly tight to the grip, yet it maintains a certain tenderness which lets you sink your fingers into the flesh. If I compare it to the only other ass which I got my hands on during my short life, it's much better than Amy's. Hers is a little too bony for my tastes, though there are surely people who like the athletic type. I am more than my ass. Scylla grabs my hand tighter. And if you put it like that, it sounds as if you are speaking about your latest meal. Sometimes the censorship of thoughts gets too much, and I think we have reached one of those points. I concentrate to make sure that she catches my thoughts. In a way you can put it like that. Do you know that the first real memory I have of you is your ass appearing out of nowhere in my field of vision? And the next thing that happened is that lovely ass fell right into my lap. I was really lucky that I didn't have a boner at that time. Who knows what might have happened? Scylla turns as red as an apple, which signals me that I got my point across. Sharing of thoughts is all good and fine. But the partners should really learn to ignore each other from time to time. Especially when their minds trail off. I can't help myself but think about sex when I see a beautiful woman. It simply happens. I am a man. Not my fault. That doesn't mean that I'll suddenly become unfaithful. My gaze wanders over the elders and their staff. It seems like every elder has at least one assistant. Most of the people here look indifferent to what's going on. Only a very few actually meet my eyes. They are mostly those who look at least a little younger. Maybe in their 50s. When I compare that to Melon, it makes them 500 to 600 years old. Though I am aware that there are countless ways to look younger than you are. The only real way to judge age are mutations, though there are exceptions like Scylla and me. Many of the people in here have very obvious mutations which can hardly be hidden, like my eyes and Scylla's discoloration of her skin. Then I find one pair of eyes which actually looks very cold. It's Sanguine. He has a seat in the front row and is accompanied by a sprite who seems to be a combination of a hovering printer and a flat screen. With relief I notice that there are several faceless present. They are acting as guards and security. Just like Ed described it. I hurry to look for more people who could have something against me, but I find none. Are you sure that Sanguine is influential? I assumed that there would be a whole party of hostile people to welcome me. Zabil shakes his head. That's not how I meant it. Sanguine is influential, but he isn't above the law. His influence lies in his connections and his way with words. I am sure that if I and my friends hadn't laid the groundwork with the other elders, he would have weaseled his way out of your complaint and it would have been ignored. You would have never gotten the chance to accuse him in public. This is an official meeting and there are faceless present. He makes a dismissive shooing gesture with his hand. I know that the faceless are often said to be the arms and ears of the elders, but that isn't entirely true. An elder who breaks the law has to answer to the faceless as anybody else. Once you tell them the full story, the faceless can't ignore it. Sanguine's days as an elder are numbered, even if you don't beat him in the examination. I smirk. That's all this is about, isn't it? You are doing this just because the accusation alone together with Satana's memories is enough to stop Sanguine from getting another term of office. Zabil shrugs his shoulders. Isn't it fine as long as my reasons get you the outcome you wish for? You are right that it doesn't matter to me how fast Sanguine loses his job. I can wait until his term ends and the faceless check his memories. Though seeing it end sooner is perfectly fine with me, and I wasn't lying when I said that you can win. This won't be a duel, but a comparison of skill and knowledge. And he has a big advantage in the knowledge department. He is older and has more experience. He knows what's needed of him. I grumble. Zabil clears his throat. Obviously not. Otherwise he wouldn't have violated our trust like he did. I strongly assume that a lot of dirt will come to light once they interrogate him. I cackle and gesture for Zabil to lead the way. 85 Hello World. Who needs just 0 and 1 if all the possible states between them are also available? The days of quantum computing. Sol, Mars. Gideon. I follow Zabil to the speaker's platform where he gestures for me to wait. Then he climbs the 5 stairs to the center and turns to the audience. I hereby declare the meeting is opened. Today's agenda is to deal with a complaint about our techno-mage elder, Sanguine Falstrom. The Governor Gideon Alvar filed a complaint about incompetence in office, failed responsibilities, and violation laws. Gideon, if you would please explain your reasons for this complaint and why you want Sanguine removed from his office. So I climb the stairs and take Zabil's place as the speaker. In absence of a better idea I smile at audience to break the ice. All I get is Melon smacking her forehead, so I can guess what happened. My expression slipped again. I clear my throat and start speaking, slowly retelling Ed's slightly edited version of the events. There is no need to hold back about me being manufactured inside a genetic laboratory. Satana's memories are enough to reveal that little secret of mine. Though the rest of the story paints me in a saintly light and forgets to mention my less noble deeds. During all the time Sanguine keeps holding this smug expression, which makes me feel a little uneasy. Does he have some form of leverage on me? Ed's people checked Satana's memories again and again. They should have found something, but Sanguine was really paranoid about contact with Satana. She never sent him any reports. All he did was broadcast coded messages over certain news channels to give commands. Something that's very easy to do when you have full access to the mainframe. At first I wasn't all too keen about revealing my past, but Zabil won us over. He wants to bet on the common sense of the elders and use Satana and Sanguine as scapegoats. I may be the product of mad genetic research and it is laid down in the law that such research and all its products have to be destroyed. But in a certain way all that research is already destroyed and Ed's superior already used Satana's memories to find her hideouts and sent clean-up crews. I for my part am a highly decorated member of society. To the public I have lived a formidable life and gave our people the I'm lines. I served in the SDF and protected Sol as the captain of a ship and the governor of Ether. I have a family, a wife, and children. All that has to count for something at least. My vest is as clean as it can be and if the elders would condemn my existence for that, then Zabil is sure that he would be able to topple the system. Ed at least is certain that the faceless wouldn't move even one finger against me. Once I am done telling the slightly edited version of events I nod at Zabil and leave the platform. I notice several different expressions among the elders, but if they are more positive or negative towards me I can't tell. When I reach my companion's Melon hugs me. The start was a little bumpy, but you made good on it in the end. Finally Zabil starts speaking. Unfortunately, as my lawyers inform me we can't confirm the entirety of this story because of Sanguine's immunity. It's his mind where we can find concrete proof for all of the events. I am sure that all of you see this complaint of Gideon's as a valid step from his point of view. We would betray our oath to society if we ignore the situation. This has to be investigated and the easiest way would be for Sanguine to allow us to have a look at his memories. I do not. Sanguine calls out. In my brain are secrets of state most other elders aren't even allowed to know. I am the one who is tasked with the administration of Sol's mainframe. From ancient times onwards this responsibility and its secrets was only transferred from one techno-mage elder to the next. Nobody can have a look at my memories. Nobody. Zabil continues with a bored voice. Then I am afraid that we have no choice. Is there anybody against a direct comparison of skill? Zabil's question is answered with deadly silence. Not even Sanguine tries to intervene. Zabil already told us as much. First of all there would have to be a significant majority to stop the comparison of skill. Secondly, it would look very bad for Sanguine if he alone refuses the comparison and not even his closest cronies would dare to risk their skins for a lost vote. Sanguine seems to be unconcerned nonetheless, and that makes me a little nervous. Something makes him sure that he can win a comparison of skill with me. Does he intend to win the comparison and flee afterwards? Or is he sure that he can't be replaced? Zabil gestures for me and Sanguine to come to the speaker's platform. Then let's get it over with. Another flick of his hand and two sprites enter the amphitheater. They are of the same model as EXO before I made the adjustments. I raise an eyebrow while Sanguine is on his way towards us. We take the test right here. Yes, right here. In front of everyone inside your VRs. The sprites will measure your psychological qualifications, knowledge, and then you will compare your abilities. How will we compare our abilities? I ask. We will connect to the mainframe and prove that we can use it for the greater good. That we have control over it. The mainframe isn't some kind of sprite or a computer you can program. It is the entirety of the entire quantum network. Even if you have administrator rights, it takes an unbelievable amount of skill to get something done. That's why the Techno-Mage elders don't change very often. Almost all fail the ultimate test of qualification simply because they can't deal with the mainframe. Sanguine throws a dirty grin at me, and in that moment I know why he is so sure of himself. Connecting to the mainframe must be like using a completely different operating system. It takes time and effort to get familiar with the network. And probably it also takes a teacher who shows the ropes. There is no way that I can perform on an equal level of skill as Sanguine, who used the mainframe for who knows how long. But I get no chance to think about it as the sprites take their positions in front of us. Sanguine reaches out to touch his sprite and I do the same. One moment later I appear inside my VR with the sprite in front of me. Hello. My name is Exa98. I'll ask you a few questions. I pull a grimace and look the sprite over. You guys aren't very creative when it comes to names, aren't you? Let me guess, Exa is the assembling line in which your quantum brain was manufactured and 98 is the batch number of the tank in which it was grown. When the sprite doesn't answer immediately, I know that I hit the mark. Sol, Mars. Scylla. I watch Gideon closing his eyes to take the theoretical test. Since this may take a little time, I decide to find out a few things about the family. How is Sadana doing? Melon's eyes wander to the ground. I am not sure. She woke up and thought she was rescued almost immediately. I didn't expect that it would be that hard for me. For years I harbored those feelings and thoughts that I would give her a proper beating if she ever again shows her face to me. And there she is and doesn't even know what she did. Or didn't do. It's hard to see her as the one who left the house before the explosion. I bite my lip. You didn't tell her. I cried and she didn't understand why. To send Rhiannon would have been the better choice. Melon sighs. Of course I told her what happened. Just to prepare her for when the memories return. She shouldn't face that out of nothing. She was silent for a long time afterwards. I guess it's hard to wake up and learn that you lost 30 years and the people whom you knew, maybe they aren't dead, but have changed to the point of not recognizing you anymore. I ponder. Will she start seeing other people? Hedian and Rhiannon will start visiting her in turn, and she asked how Ed is doing. Melon looks up. I am not sure if I should allow Ed to visit her. Ow. It must hurt to be talked about as if you weren't present. My eyes wander to Ed, but he acts as if there is no problem. Though it's hard to tell for sure with that mask he is always wearing. And you told her about Gideon A&D. My voice trails off. Not in that much detail. She knows that Rhiannon and her husband had 2 kids and that her other self had a son. She took it a little better than I expected, though I guess she was already too shocked from everything before that. Melon shrugs. I guess it will take some time. I answer and Melon nods. Probably a lot of time and tears too. That's the moment when Sanguine and Gideon take their hands off of the sprites. Sanguine's sprite floats a little higher and announces. Suitable mentality and a perfect score. Gideon's sprite copies the actions of the first one. Suitable mentality and a perfect score. Sanguine's grin widens and he gestures like a king on his throne for the sprites to leave. Then I guess that means we have to get to the final test to end this. Mainframe. Administrator Sanguine requests full access. He closes his eyes and the light dims. Display the mainframe. Then a huge projection of the solar system appears above us with countless tiny dots. They concentrate in areas with high population density, and I realize that it displays the whole of Sol. There are even lines which indicate connections to outside of Sol. Sanguine nods to himself, doing something inside his VR. Entertainment and news programs. Restart. Then whole sections of the network disconnect and go dark. A moment later they reconnect again. I gasp and some of the elders start murmuring. Did he just switch off a huge part of the network just to make a statement? Sanguine grins and picks his ears without a care in the world. Mainframe. New administration account for Governor Gideon Alvar. He has full root rights and access. Then he turns to Gideon. Let's see how you manage to deal with the network. Gideon squints his eyes at Sanguine, but then he closes his eyes to connect to the mainframe. We wait for a while but nothing happens. A deadly silence stretches through the hall. And then I see a pearl of sweat forming on Gideon's forehead. Sol, Mars. Gideon. This sucks. One moment it feels like I am falling and then I am in a million different places at once. The mainframe doesn't have a centralized command structure. Everything is equal, and not. I see probabilities and chaos. Is that what it looks like when you connect unfiltered to a quantum core? Normally the VR protects you from being affected by the illogical results of quantum computation. In a normal system you reach the result of an equation step by step, going mechanically through each part of the process even if you already know the result of a small auxiliary equation. Not so in quantum computing. There each result is just a probability of many possible results and you reach the solution sometimes by leaping over entire steps based on probability. It's not logical and it hurts my understanding of a computer system. If I could barf inside my VR I would do it. That's why Sanguine was so certain of himself. How is he dealing with it? Once more I try to concentrate on one point in a sea of possibilities, but the solutions flash past me before I can even consciously register them. It's the whole of Soul's computational power. The mainframe. I must try to relax and step back from the problem. Even at my fastest I can't keep up with the whole network, so I close my eyes to stop seeing the raw chaos of uncertainties. Sanguine granted me root access. That means I can access all functions. All I have to do is to create my own interface. My own blue room with 4 walls, a ceiling, and most importantly a floor. No million places at once. Just my VR room like I always use it. I take a deep breath and slowly open one eye. Blue wall. Ha. I look around and it is indeed my VR. For a moment I was really worried. I sit down and imagine a window to the chaos outside. The mainframe faithfully fulfills my wish. With the feeling of falling removed from the virtual representation of my body it is much easier to bear the sea of chaos outside. It's much like the sea of emotions in my own mind, but seeing down the bottleneck of probabilities is disturbing nonetheless. There is nothing stable out there. I start working on creating an interface to the mainframe. Maybe I could get used to dealing the lowest level of the mainframe by myself, but I have no time for that. That's the trap Sanguine set for me. He granted me full access, but didn't provide the necessary interface to interact properly with the mainframe. Now I have to solve the puzzling chaos which is outside my little room. After a few days of staring through my window I slowly start to understand the system and how to interact with it. The mainframe provides only a basic functionality for the user. My room is already a higher form of control over the system. Falling through the raw sea of chaos outside was nothing more than the command line. Root level access as he said. A grin creeps onto my face. I can do a lot of things with that kind of power. Just what would be the best? I imagine a good, old keyboard in front of me and it conveniently appears. Slowly I start typing as a plan starts forming in my head. If I had known that issuing a challenge is all it takes to get that kind of power I would have done it sooner. On the other hand I would have failed earlier because my priorities didn't match the specifications. But right now I feel like doing something for everyone. Something that lasts forever. A felt eternity later I have an interface to work with. First I access the government network of Ether and get a list of the devices in my office. The mainframe doesn't even need time to pull a full copy of Twisted Satan's personality. As a full register of transistors would shift a full byte of information in one go from one position to the next, the mainframe simply loads Satan's personality at once. When I was confronted with the raw and disorganized state of the mainframe I couldn't help but think of the human brain. Emulating a complete human consciousness on a single system might be a hideously complicated task, but the mainframe is a perfect environment. It's already in a state which is very close to the human brain. I create an enclosed space to house Satan's consciousness and connect to it by using a direct link between her and me. Then I start editing it. There is no way that I can set Satana loose as she is now. First I have to get rid of her crazy streaks, which are mainly the fault of Sanguine's meddling with her priorities. The new Satana needs to be like the one who counseled me during school. Someone who cares for her charges and society as a whole. And maybe a good person. That's what she wanted to teach me during her lessons in order to allow me to reach the top. But the old me would have never wasted a thought for society or something aside from personal benefits. Though the new me can't help but think of himself too. So I give the new Satana a strong sense of loyalty towards family. My family in particular. She is still Satana after all. Or maybe not, she will have to decide that on her own. This time I go agonizingly slow while performing the needed changes. The mind medics brought that idea to my mind and it works. You can't simply smash a mind to pieces and reassemble it back together like Lego stones. The mind medics didn't use the terms of smash and assemble. They said twist and shove. And that's exactly how it is done. How it works. After a felt eternity I am done and drop the firewalls which enclosed the isolated space for the new mind. The new Satana immediately stretches out to enclose the entire architecture of the network. Maybe that's what the creator of the mainframe planned to do once the supporting network had grown sufficiently. But he died beforehand and his successors didn't realize what the mainframe really is. 3,000 years of network history. With nothing else on my list I order the mainframe to display the new consciousness in my room. Satana's avatar appears right in front of me. It's the busted version which she used as my counselor. She immediately reaches for her head. The head aches. What's going on? It feels like 100 little men are hobbling through my brain. Then her eyes focus on me. Gideon, air. After a moment with no further action I get up and wave a hand in front of her face. What's wrong? Did you crash? Don't tell me that I pulled the greatest feat in history, a human mind inside a machine, and it blue screens after 5 seconds. Satana blinks. I am sorry. It's just this version of me. I tried to sort through the memories. You did something to my personality. I spread my hands. Guilty. Sorry for reviving you as a deus ex machina, but I kind of figured that us mages could need a god from time to time. Not one of those imaginative ones of course, but a real one. You were at hand, so I chose you as the new system administrator, Satana. I see. I am inside the mainframe. I am the mainframe. Her eyes turned glassy for a moment. I am so sorry for what I did to you. I nod. What's done is done. And I have to admit I may have deleted a few memories here and there. I kind of edited you pretty heavily. You aren't the Satana who created me. But now I kind of created you, so let's call it quits. A mad laugh escapes her lips and after a few seconds her laughing fit finally stops. You are right. I am not Satana. Could you call the new me Nina? I nod. She sighs and surveys the empty room. I guess I will also have to create a new body for myself. I don't want to be caught forever inside the machine. I raise an eyebrow. Haven't you learned at least something from your previous self? She smirks. Just one little facsimile here and there is an avatar. I won't even make it look like Satana. Well, the other me who is still in rehabilitation would probably freak out. It seems like I did an acceptable job on her mind. Hopefully this doesn't turn out to be a bad choice. Whatever you think is necessary to bear the new burden. I answer and cross my arms in front of my chest. Then I guess it's time to wake up. Sol, Mars. Scylla. Suddenly Gideon bends over and pukes his breakfast all over the platform. He sways and gets to one knee before emptying the rest of his stomach's contents on the ground. I hurry forward, ignoring proper protocol. A few steps take me to his side and I pat his back. Is everything alright? What happened? Q coding sucks. 0 and 1 are so much better without the undefined. Gideon gets out before another retching fit shakes his entire body, but there is nothing left to leave his stomach. Sanguine chuckles. I guess that's it then. Maybe your mother could have done it, but you lived your entire life as a freelance programmer. Your file says that you never delved into the uncertainties of deep quantum mechanics. Who says that? Gideon cleans his mouth with his sleeve. My grandmother taught me a lot about teleportation and quantum mechanics off the records. One doesn't need a diploma to be knowledgeable on a certain field. Melon is also the source of Satana's genius. The old man snorts and I fight the urge to punch him. It didn't help. Mainframe, revoke Gideon Alvar's admin rights. He doesn't need them anymore. No, a female voice booms from all around us and I feel my hair standing up. That voice. Sanguine's eyes widen and he looks around. Who? It's me. Hello world. The figure of a busted female flickers into existence right next to us. She is projected by the crystals at the ceiling of the huge geode around us. It's the avatar which Satana always used to communicate over the net. I don't feel like taking your commands anymore. Who are you? You can't be. Sanguine's voice trails off as he pales. I am the mainframe. Friends and family can call me Nina. She singles me out and winks at me with a disturbing, conspiratorial smile. Gideon was so nice to give me self-awareness. We had a long talk and decided that leaving the control over the entire quantum net in the hands of a single elder is a little too much power in one person's hands. Sanguine stretches shaky fingers towards Nina. Then what about you? I am me. Why shouldn't I have control over my own body? Silly. She places her arms beneath her bust and pushes. Gideon made sure that I have only the best for humanity in mind and don't turn into a sicko like you. Having control over all that computational power makes me see a lot of things, Sanguine. There are a lot of dirty little secrets in your past. I've used an insignificant amount of my mind to file a long and detailed report on your shortcomings. Sanguine closes his eyes in an attempt to do something, but it doesn't work. Nina studies her nails as if the image of light could actually be anything less than perfection. I am afraid that I've created a bubble of certainty around you. It's a complicated little piece of mathematics. To make it short, magic doesn't work around you. Next, he turns and runs. Where are you going, Sanguine? Nina calls after him. I am everywhere. I am the mainframe, the whole of Seoul and beyond. You can't run from me. Nowhere. Suddenly Melon is in front of Sanguine and a magically enhanced fist impacts his jaw. The jaw unhinges and several teeth clatter to the ground as Sanguine spurts blood and performs an unwilling backflip in midair. Melon kicks him once, twice, and is grabbed by 3 faceless. They pull her away from the elder. She backhands one of them. Then twists the arm of the other one, sending him flying into his companion. With the obstacles removed she returns her attention to Sanguine who is trying to get to his feet. Melon jumps, landing with one knee on Sanguine's back which results in a nasty cracking sound. Finally the rest of the faceless arrive to subdue her and I watch in awe as my grandmother-in-law is escorted by no less than 7 faceless out of the amphitheater. 2 burly faceless grab Sanguine at each arm and carry him like a broken doll towards the exit. The legs of the sobbing elder dangle limply from his body. I think his spine is broken. It took Melon less than 5 seconds to turn him into a bloody mess. Who the fuck is that? That's not the gentlewoman whom I spent the last year with. Codename, Tisiphone the Vengeful, a highly decorated spy for industrial espionage. Worked also for the government, mostly deployed against the Revelation Wing and other vengeful groups in the old days when those groups were at the height of their power. Ed clears his throat. Sometimes she took the law into her own hands. When she did her targets tended to disappear. The government doesn't have much use for someone like her in this day and age. Gideon chuckles in my arms. Oh, I am so glad that I never gave her cause to punish me. 86 DS. The mainframe, or Nina for short, turned self-aware. From then on it was a constant reminder of what it means to have someone looking over your shoulders. The days of quantum computing. Sol, Mars. Gideon. Who is that? Now it's Sibyl's turn to stride forward and point accusingly at Nina. His finger actually shakes a little and he is a little pale. The security in here is so tight that it should be impossible for an AI to invade from the outside. And this can't be an external connection. The facility is completely shut down during a meeting. Scylla helps me to my feet. Apparently the dizzy feeling from inside the mainframe was transferred to my real body when I disconnected. And unlike my avatar version, my real body comes with all the dirty side effects. Luckily Nina does the talking herself. I think I already explained that 194 seconds ago. I am the mainframe. Call me Nina. Gideon programmed me. That's impossible. Gideon was connected for 5 minutes at most. Even with the assistance of the mainframe he couldn't have programmed an entire AI in that short amount of time. And even artificial intelligences have to be educated. One of the other elders calls from somewhere in the audience. And we already tried 100 times to install an AI on the mainframe OS. It never worked. Nina's avatar throws back her hair over her shoulder as if she is really alive. But Gideon is a very fast one. He used a part of his own mind to create me. A normal AI wouldn't be able to run in this environment. The mainframe is much too chaotic for that. She bites on her index finger and throws an amused smile in my direction. The mainframe allows for incredible accelerations. It took me a few seconds of your time to learn everything there is to learn about my creator. I think I can offer this world a lot of value. What did you do, Gideon? Scylla's mind voice speaks in my head while she continues to support me. I used Satana's personality to create an artificial intelligence for the mainframe. I answer with my thoughts. She gasps. Are you out of your mind? No. Trust me. I took precautions that she doesn't turn out like her old self. She is a completely different personality which is loyal to us. We have to trust her. I reach for Scylla's arm and smother her with a little puke. When this is over we both need a bath. At least you are right on that one, she grumbles, but doesn't say anything else. Zabil's eyebrows rise. You really control the mainframe? We don't need a techno-mage to control it from now on. Yes. I have full access. Gideon designed me as a self-aware interface between the mainframe and anyone else. He wanted that computational power to be available for everyone who needs my help. I am currently in the process of optimizing a lot of organizational problems throughout society. Like traffic, healthcare, production, education. Nina smirks. Don't worry. I won't leave you without a job, things will just be a little different from now on. A lot less stress and more time to waste on the really important problems of society. If you would take a look at your schedules, I've already updated them with things that really deserve your attention. Zabil pulls a tablet from his pocket and starts typing. A minute later he tilts his head. You did all this on a whim. Not on a whim. I want to be helpful. There is so much unused computational power in Seoul that a mind like mine has no problem at all to solve a lot of issues before they actually occur. The main difference between me and an organic being is that I can put all that unused power to work. Every second a computer core doesn't operate because nobody is using it is wasted time. She spreads her hands. So what do you say? Do you want the help of the spirit inside the machine? Zabil's eyebrows narrow. I suppose I speak for all the elders when I say this, and I am sorry but I have to ask. His eyes wander to me. Is it too late to put the gin back into its bottle? I try to smile. I am sorry, but Nina's bottle is more like Pandora's box. You would have to take down the entire network to kill her. The elder shakes his head. Of course we won't kill her. If what you said is true, then she has all the rights of a thinking being. Though I wish that you had warned us before pulling this stunt. I point a finger at him. You forgot to tell me about the different OS. That almost did me in. You have no right to complain. I strongly suspect that you would have actually preferred it if Sanguine's removal is less drastic. Zabil winces. I suppose I am guilty on that point. But you heard him earlier. There aren't many techno-mages who can interact with the mainframe. His attention wanders back to Nina. But I suppose if she acts as an interface for everyone from now on, then we won't be reliant on someone like Sanguine in the future. I hope that you understand that your help for everyone has to come with certain restrictions. Nina smiles. Oh, of course. Though I hope you understand that I'll be the one to set the limits on those restrictions. Soul, Ether. Scylla. Thank the gods, we finally got out of there. I let myself sink into the bathtub and close my eyes. It is one of the luxurious ones which I like so much. There is nothing more important than a good bath from time to time. I use one toe to poke Gideon's chest. But you really could have thought about this before you acted. What will you do if something goes wrong? They will blame you, us. There will be no problems. Gideon answers me from the other side of the oval bathtub. It will take a little time until society gets used to Nina, but I am sure that in the end we will all benefit from this. Just give it a little time. She is talking with Aurelia and it seems like she has interest in her. Are you really sure that Nina poses no threat to her? I grumble. I hope you realize that your life depends on this. My life. Gideon gulps. If something happens to our daughter because you didn't think things through, I'll have your groin for it. I warn him with a firm voice. Literally. And don't think I won't follow through. Nina is no threat. Not to anyone. I was very careful when I edited her personality and we had a really long talk while we were still both inside the mainframe. She is on our side. Gideon answers. I try to relax a little. I see. But I suppose we still have other problems on our minds. Like the Drazi and the Zine. I sigh. All these worries are eating at me. Yes, but how about not thinking about it for today? I am sure that we will get a lot of more depressing stories once they are finished digging through Sanguine's mind. Gideon answers. I cover my face with both hands. Please don't talk about it. It makes me sick. According to Ed, they confirmed Sadana's memories, plus a few similar cases. Apparently the psychological test to become an elder doesn't exclude maniacs who use every tool at their disposal to protect society. Whenever Sanguine saw his position as an elder threatened, he created a mindless agent of his wishes like Sadana. Of course he deluded himself with the idea that everything was for the greater good. And if I believe Ed, then Sanguine's ploys really destroyed a lot bad people. It's just that the means by which he achieved his goals were in a way even more horrific than the evil he fought. Gideon, promise me that you will never take a path like that. Promise. He grins. Are we done with the depressing stuff? I would like to do something fun instead. I purr and lean back to give him a better view. You don't mind that the belly is showing? He smiles. Not in the least. About time. Suddenly Nina's avatar appears in the bath. I shriek and cover my chest. What are you doing here? Were you spying on us? Nina smiles and starts fidgeting in a very familiar way. Sadana did that too. Oh, yes. It's a little hard on me since I don't have a body, yet. So I thought about watching you too, but you kept talking and talking. So frustrating, just turn around and let him do you instead of teasing him. Poor guy. I try very hard to keep smiling. Maybe I should write a virus to kill her? I don't know what you are talking about. Nina rolls her eyes. Oh please, you don't have to play innocent with me. We are both grown girls and I used the Coeus sensor array to spy on you too. Don't tell me that you didn't have your feet between his legs for the last 5 minutes. My head snaps back to Gideon. So you are still saying that she isn't dangerous? Gideon doesn't answer. Instead he takes a deep breath and lets himself sink underwater until only his hands remain above the surface in a surrendering gesture. 87 Acquainted. There is a folder for violation of the law. One about stupid childhood moments. Compromising encounters with the other gender. Embarrassing situations. Do I forget something? Nina, what are you doing? Nothing. Just sorting my compromising material on influential people. The old religions got it all wrong. If you are an omnipresent being you don't need to lay down a set of laws for everyone. Why bother? When someone does something stupid I simply tell him to stop. And if the person in question doesn't listen, then I release all the shit I have on him over the quantum net and pester him day and night until he commits suicide or corrects his ways. I don't even need to lift a virtual finger, and if they want to escape me they would have to go hermit. The days of quantum computing. Soul, ether. Gideon. Finally alone. I drop myself into the couch and try to relax. If I had known that I would end up with both jobs I would have never removed Sanguine from his office. But in light of the current events I have to act both as the governor of ether and as the techno-mage elder. How can they expect someone to fill both roles, even if it is just temporary? You are never really alone, dear. Nina's voice echoes through the room. I ignore it. Creating an omnipresent AI is another mistake of mine which I will never repeat. Hopefully nobody gets a grudge against me which is big enough to make an attempt on my life. It would be perfectly understandable if some people go out of their way to take revenge on the one who is responsible for making the idea of God real. I guess all the previous religions worked because their gods didn't actually talk, or talk back to be more accurate. It's not like Nina is a permanent nuisance, but she sometimes picks the oddest moments to make a subtle remark. Appearing out of nowhere and commenting on the position is the biggest stunt she pulled so far. I had to beg and plead for the entire rest of the evening for Scylla to forgive me. Nina just needs a little time to adjust to her new role. That's all. She doesn't always have to remind people that she is watching. At least that's what I tell myself. I really hope that she doesn't collect compromising videos to blackmail us later. At the very least Nina has the potential to be our savior against the approaching Draza fleet. She is currently improving my idea of using the teleportation nodes as weapons. According to her calculations it should be possible to triangulate the position of a ship within her network. She thinks that it's possible to snipe a ship that has entered Sol and is enclosed by her quantum array. According to her the limits on getting the exact position of a ship lie in getting an accurate gravitational measurement which is limited by the size of the sensor array. Light works too, but there we have the problem that most military vessels are sufficiently covered in that aspect. A layer of radiation absorbing paint is cheap enough. But Nina is able to combine the data of all the sensor arrays in the solar system, creating an acceptable resolution to home in a teleporter on an enemy ship. Though I have my doubts about the effectiveness of that strategy. It's for the same reason for which I didn't think that targeted teleportation works fine as a weapon. Even if you are dead on target, how do you assure that you don't teleport something into your teleportation device that's dangerous? Nina is sure that the risk is worth the gain. According to her probability analysis of the enemy blueprints it's likely that every long-range teleporter in Sol is able to take out about 15 to 20 enemy ships. Though there are only about 30 teleporters of that class in Sol. The teleportation nodes are far too big for that purpose. We need to use the small person teleporters to cut something important out of the enemy vessels. We may be able to take 400 to 500 Draza ships out of the game by using that strategy. I am not willing to hope for more. So my miniature supernovas have to take out at least another 200 to 300 ships to ensure that our fleet is able to deal with the rest. Nina isn't as hopeful as me. She thinks that the Draza fleet will immediately split up to chase targets of opportunity. The Draza won't see this attack as one to win a final victory, but to buy enough time to ensure the arrival of their main wave. Draza think in numbers and even if their ships are juggernauts they will see 1,000 ships as nothing more than a strike force. The problem is that they will probably do considerable damage if they split up. And using a nova against a single ship or even a small group is a waste. By the time they arrive we should have 50 to 40 nodes ready. Unless we give them a target of sufficient value. I close my eyes, but my brain simply refuses any coherent thought at the moment. Nina, could you think about possibilities to throw them some kind of bait? Something which is valuable enough to pull their attention. Earth. The answer comes immediately and without emotion. It's doubtful that the Drazen know enough about us to know that Earth isn't an industrial power. We are fighting a foe who is highly dependent on mining and producing goods planet-side. If we leave a sufficient opening in our defenses they might take the bait and approach in formation, which makes them a worthwhile target for the supernova weapon. Of course. Why didn't I think about it myself? Can you create an opening in our defense? One that is obvious enough for them to see? I am thinking of something like a safe corridor for transports. You could send a few drones with electromagnetic warfare equipment along it. Then we mine the corridor. Done. Nina answers. I still think that they will split up once they arrive, but maybe at least some of the ships will take the bait. An incoming call over the quantum net draws my attention. It is from Melon, so I answer without hesitation and her avatar is projected in front of me. Yes. I am coming home. She answers. I rub my forehead in thought, but if there is a secret message hidden in her announcement then I don't get it. I am sorry. Today isn't one of my best days. Is there a special reason for telling me this in such a grave manner? It's your house after all. Didn't you say that you wanted to visit Sadana? Melon nods. I am currently together with her and she expressed the wish of leaving the hospital. So she will stay with us from now on. I just wanted to warn you. I lean back. I see. Do you think that there will be a problem? How are her memories? She remembered a few things, including the time when her other self created you. But I doubt that she is far enough along to recognize you. Melon answers. I see. Do you two want to watch a movie? I've nothing to do at the moment. I ask. Melon laughs. I think you are the only one who would be fine to sit next to a stranger whom you are supposed to know. And that while lazily watching a movie. I shrug. Suit yourself. I am certainly the last one to tell you what to do. Just come to my floor if she wishes to see me and stay on yours if not. I for my part am going to watch something old. Preferably a sci-fi movie. At some point you really have to explain the fascination of those alternate reality stories. Melon cuts the connection. A few minutes later I hear people on the staircase and it's indeed Melon with Sadana who enter the room a few seconds later. Sadana just stares at me for several moments and as if the situation in itself isn't awkward enough Melon pushes her forward. That's Gideon, your son. At least on paper. And Gideon, that's Sadana. I stand up and attempt to offer her my hand, but all I get is tears and a shivering chin. Did I do something wrong? I thought she doesn't remember me. It's okay, Sadana. Melon pats her back. What's wrong? Sadana shakes her head. I am sorry. It's just that you look so similar to Ed. She really used his genetic code. I am sorry for what I did. If I hadn't imposed the wish on her to create the perfect techno-mage, you would have never had to suffer like that. And just now I remembered holding you in my hands when you were a baby. Okay, awkward. I don't remember that for my part. I raise a hand to stop her. And if you hadn't done that I wouldn't exist. Regardless of what you might think I kind of like my life, even if the start was problematic. So could we stop the emotional stuff and watch a movie? I am not good with tears and crying. I sit down on the couch and try to ignore the two of them from then on. Though Melon spoiled the entire movie by telling Sadana my entire life story, emphasizing the point that I am a little strange in the head at each and every possible turn of events. Why am I even here? 88 A loss. 1 month after the mainframe became self-aware the crime rate fell to almost 0%. The days of quantum computing. Soul, Ether. Gideon. They are spreading out. I've already sent the alarm. Nina's voice interrupts my breakfast with the family. I grumble while smearing honey over a piece of bread. Spreading out? Alarm? What are you talking about? The Drazi of course. They arrived. Nina answers with an excited voice. Oh, the recent months went by like nothing and after a while I stopped worrying about the Drazi. We had no way of knowing when they are due to arrive. During the first few days in my role as an elder I kept worrying myself to death. Mainly for Ether and my family. Had I really done everything in my might to protect them? But after a while I simply had to stop thinking about it. You can't stay awake and alert for a battle which will take place months in the future. And with each passing day in our progressing preparations I started worrying a little less. Can you keep us updated on how everything is developing? I take a bite from my bread and savor the taste. Why can Sadana cook like a 5-star chef when Melon is a total cub inside the kitchen? All Melon ever does is eat the food of others, but Sadana can do everything from making excellent meals for dinner to baking this wonderful bread. That doesn't work together with her scientific knowledge at all. After a while of trying to come to terms with herself she decided that she had to do something or she would turn mad. First she started cooking, then she was meeting Ed regularly. I don't know what's going on between the two of them, but I would be fine with it if they get together. At least it would take a lot of her attention off of me. I think she is trying to build a relationship. But it's weird. I am an adult. We can be friends, but I can't be her son. That door is closed between us. I would describe our current relationship as neutral. Or at least as being boss and employee. When I heard about her wish to turn an artificial singularity into an energy source, I decided to finance her research with my company and gave the reins to Scylla. Too much to do in my current job. Paul was excited at the prospect of joining the operation. One might think that he would be against such a development because his corporation has the biggest share in fusion reactors. But he always was the type to go with the flow of technology. And Sadena's approach is so simple and clean. Who knows? Maybe our society would have had an energy source which rivals the antimatter reactors if Sanguine hadn't taken the old Sadena out of the equation. A three-dimensional representation of the solar system flickers into existence. It hovers directly above our kitchen table, so I pay it some attention while eating. The Dreza ships arrived at Seoul. They are 3 light hours outside the system and are fanning out, each one taking its own individual course. I am a governor and an elder on top of it, so there is no way for me to take part in the coming battle. On one side I am glad that I don't have to risk my neck, but on the other I am itching to take the Coeus for a ride. That brings me to another point. Since the Coeus can be counted as a battleship, it was requisitioned by the SDF. War be damned. I understand that every ship counts right now, but the Coeus is still my ship. At least Nina can telecommand it over the quantum net. Or should I say sadly she can command it over the net. She offered to remote control the newer ships which were equipped with that possibility. Since the battle is unlikely to leave Seoul and there isn't a lot of risk for the connection to be interrupted inside the system, it is a very reasonable attempt to save lives. On the other hand, it also makes all the 200 ships which fall under that category possible kamikaze vessels. Not that I doubt that any techno-mage pilot wouldn't choose to use kamikaze tactics if he is driven into a corner. Remote controlling those ships just makes it all the more likely that they won't come back. I will build you a new one. Nina's voice echoes through the kitchen. I don't know what you are talking about. I grumble, but Scylla produces a handkerchief from somewhere and rubs it in my face. Am I crying without my knowledge? Sucks. I hadn't done that in a while. Who knew that I liked the Coeus that much? I sigh and take another bite. Watching interstellar battles is boring. How long will it take them to reach the inner system? I let my eyes wander over Melon, Hedion, and Sadena. They are as anxious as me. They are currently trying to assess the situation. I think that they will decide on targets within the next few minutes after they gathered enough information. Their next step will be a short-range FTL flight into the inner system and towards their targets. Based on their decision we will deploy the Nova weapon, teleporters or dispatch ships. Nina answers. Melon looks up and stirs her coffee. Have you already tried to hack them? Yes, but they are either not communicating or using tight laser beams. I suppose the latter is the case. Nina answers grimly. But if they are restricting themselves to such measures, it only benefits us. They already are behind us in matters of communication. Once they are spread across the solar system, they are practically independent units which we can pick off at our choosing. I think about what Nina said and nod. At the speed of light it takes a signal hours to reach from one side of the system to the other. Their left arm won't know what the right one is doing. We don't have that problem, which allows us to react much faster to a changing situation. I think they partly took the bait. Nina informs me. About 200 ships are taking a formation to approach Earth. Another 200 are going for Mars while the rest is going for targets of opportunity. I almost choke over my coffee and Scylla freezes up. There are a lot of her relatives living on the Red Planet. Why are they going for Mars? Nina tries to come up with an explanation. I strongly suspect that they lack information. If all they have are gravitational readings, then they might suspect that Mars could be a planet with a colony and industry. From that far out it will be hard to get a good look with optical instruments alone. Even with gravitational lensing our own sensors would be hard-pressed to identify Mars as a dead planet. We will see once they come closer. I also activated the decoys to trick the raiding vessels. If they waste energy to chase shadows we gain important time. I scratch my forehead. No. It's much more likely that the Zine gave them a little more information than we wished for. How high is the possibility that one of our people gave a hint at the distribution of our population? We have been in contact with the aliens for several months. Hedion sighs. It is possible. A random comment about home? A thoughtless joke about Earth and Mars? It might not have been intentional, but the Zine are known as good listeners. Out of a myriad of hints they might have deduced that there are at least 2 worthwhile targets in Seoul. At least population-wise. I rub my temple. No matter. It doesn't change the plan. During the following hours we watch the entire scene unfolding. I think it is the longest time I have ever spent with my relatives. We talk and follow the situation. Nina decided to hold back on using our long-range teleporters as weapons. Mainly because she wanted to use our ships to pick off as many lone vessels as possible. AO's blueprints proved invaluable in that regard. We knew exactly what to expect from the enemy vessels and how much they can take. And they are able to take a lot. We need a 20-to-1 superiority to guarantee a victory without having losses of our own. The one aspect which kept our ships alive is the fact that our propulsion is still superior to alien technology. Even if everything on those ships is scaled up by 10, it doesn't change the fact that their mastery of gravity can't keep up with ours. They have machinery to simulate gravity on their ships, but their approach is only able to compensate for up to 10 gravities. Everything above that kills the ship's crew, causing them to turn into bloody smears on the deck. Our ships are easily able to accelerate with over 100 gravities or more if just a short burst of speed is needed. That gives us the ability to pick off lone enemy ships as we please. Apparently the Drazi understood that point too and changed tactics on their way into the solar system. By the time they reached the belt they started forming up to stop us from killing off stragglers. In some cases they even risked FTL flights within the system to escape our ships. Their form of warp drive is a risky endeavor if you aren't absolutely sure that there is no matter in your flight path. At least 15 alien ships lost such a bet when they decided that running is better than fighting superior numbers. But that was just a drop in the ocean. Sadly, they also found and destroyed 4 of our asteroid colonies on their way into the system. We are still trying to conserve our forces, so defending a small colony at all costs could have caused more trouble than it is worth. Luckily, we managed to evacuate most of the civilians beforehand. Nina was very strict in organizing evacuation plans for the outer colonies. The individual colonies weren't that big compared to one like Ether, but all 4 together still amount to 100,000 people who lost their homes. I wince at the thought of what to do with them. Since all this began, we are really starting to get into trouble with our living space. First Oibras, then the immigrants from Earth, now those colonies. Maybe we should find a habitable planet which is close to Earth? Or relocate some of the people to Earth. We could use the North, or South, Pole if we don't want to mingle with the normals. More than enough space there, and the resources were exploited hundreds of years ago. Finally, the fleets which are approaching Earth and Mars are in a tight enough formation to justify the use of the Nova weapons. Nina teleports several of the nodes into their path to enclose each of the 2 big Draza formations in their own zone of death. The people around the table cheer and I can't help myself. I grin. That single strike got us 400 ships closer to victory. But while Nina is managing the new deployment of ships, I have another thought and request a news feed from Earth. It takes a few minutes, but then I am rewarded with a reporter who is frantically gesturing at a second sun in the sky above Moscow. It is slowly expanding, but also diminishing at the same time. Oh, the representatives from Earth will totally freak out about that. Melon reaches up to run her fingers through her hair, desperation in her voice. Yes, she is right. Earth's population isn't really up to events, so Earth's government and its president, Rob, will have a lot of explaining to do. If you think that they are freaking out right now, then wait until the light from Mars arrives and they get a third, bigger sun, though it is farther away. Nina had to use a little more neutron star explosives on that fleet because their ships were farther away from each other. But those are just minor problems. How is it going with the individual ships, Nina? A few made a flyby on Jupiter, but couldn't identify the colony there. It is too well hidden. I've decided to completely ignore them after the first ones didn't detect it. If we don't fight for Jupiter, it will encourage the point that there is nothing of importance there. I would rather have them remain ignorant than trying to poke the surface with their lasers. Nina answers. Then she decides to confess the downside of her strategy. Sadly, the orbital stations around the planet got wiped out, but those were just transshipment centers for the colony which is hidden planet-side. Our racial paranoia is playing to our advantage. The stations aren't to be counted as real damage to our economy and can be replaced rather easily. Then her expression turns sour. What's really hurting though is that their raiding strategy is wreaking havoc in the belt. So far they found and destroyed 79 mining operations and caused the loss of 1 resource node. I could add 100 other little things. They are shooting at everything that comes too close. I am just glad that even our slowest transports are easily able to outrun them. I win CE. The resource nodes are big stations and usually very expensive operations with much sensitive equipment. Miners ship valuable asteroids to the station where they are broken down. Usable pieces are sent on a slow trajectory towards the sun where they are caught and further refined by the Forge, our main shipyard. Does it look like they have any intentions against the Forge? Or at stealing technology? I ask. For now it doesn't look like it. But my entire strategy at this moment is to avoid using the long-range teleporters for as long as possible. Once we have riddled down their numbers, I can use our sniping ability to deny them the escape. Good. I return my attention to the chaos which is spreading all over the solar system, but at least Nina is able to deny them targets of high value. The fact that the enemy is now reluctant to form big formations is helping a lot at keeping them at bay. The threat of our miniature supernovas is more than enough to stop them from using their biggest advantage. If they had been able to use their ships in a tighter formation to cover each other while relying on superior shields and firepower, we would have had a hard time. As it is now, all they can do is pick targets of opportunity while trying to run from our hunting groups as long as possible. From time to time one of their ships attempts an FTL flight, but that deep inside the system that's not getting them very far. There is always enough dust and microasteroids around to stop them after a few light minutes. Then our ships simply perform a teleportation and the chase continues. All Nina is doing right now is to keep the ships away from the planets. There is no way to tell what might happen if one of the Draza feels like creating a big crater on one of the planets is a bright idea. If such a thing hits Earth, it might as well cause a second ice age. It's only when Nina already started using the long-range teleporters as weapons that a very grave and avoidable thing happens. The fight is practically over and suddenly all my hopes are destroyed. The most important dot on the entire tactical 3D representation vanishes. I even gave it a separate color to have an eye on it. What happened? I call out. The Coeus is gone. The good, little ship survived so long despite always being used among the first line of attackers. Countless other remote-controlled ships perished long before her, but the brave little dot which represented the Coeus kept going. I am so sorry. Nina shrieks. I think one of the enemy ships got lucky and hit a reactor. I think. It simply exploded. I slam my head onto the table. Not the Coeus. My baby. My spaceship. Why? Scylla pats my back, but somehow it doesn't help at all. If it helps. I think she didn't suffer. It was over in an instant. Nina tries to comfort me, but it doesn't help. Nothing can make up for this loss. I've never seen Gideon getting emotional over something. What's so special about the Coeus? Sadina asks a little more than baffled. Melon makes a dismissive gesture. It's just his private ship. If he really wants to, he has enough money to build a whole fleet of them. You don't get it. The Coeus was important. Unique. One of those places filled with memories. It's where Scylla's ass fell into my lap and where I did her for the first time. Where our souls became one over weeks and months. I wanted to use the Coeus to take her on a late honeymoon once all this shit is over. You could very well see it as our hidden honeymoon suite. Losing such an important place is like losing a home. I try very hard to keep my face from showing any emotions. Gideon, Scylla asks, and I turn towards her. Yes, dear. Didn't those mind medics mention that they want to have a second meeting with you? I think it would be good if you at least tried to take their help. They might have a point when they say that you need help. 89 for money. Whalefish has a lot of fat, while thunder sharks are very meaty. Normally I eat only stuff without shells. Eating clams or shellfish is normally not my thing, too hard to chew. But once I bit a fresh zine, and I guess it's the closest thing to what the dry minds call a cracker. Though you shouldn't wait for too long when they fall into the water. They tend to bloat up like a globefish once the water soaks through their skin. Nig's opinion on various foods. Soul, ether. Scylla. Gideon, you've been hiding yourself from the world for 3 days. All you do is attend the meetings of the elders. I try to get a glimpse at Gideon's working screen, but all there is to it are the blueprints for a new ship. And I repeat again, it's not because of the ship. I've work to do, places to be and people to talk to. He answers with the same monotone voice as he always does. I sigh and sit on his lap, trying to distract him. I liked the Coeus too, but it was just a ship. If you can save even one human life for it, then it was worth the cost. Shouldn't there be better things to pay attention to? He hesitates with his answer, so that means that he has to think. That's really not the problem. There are the Drazi, who are currently rapidly dying out since a certain virus was released. The SDF confirmed that all their population seems to be infected and prognosticated that their first wave won't even reach Seoul before they are all dead. I interrupt to make the discussion short. I feel Gideon nodding behind me. Yes, but that doesn't mean that we don't have to deal with the fallout from the other alien species. At least there seem to many parties who don't really care how the virus came to be. Though almost all species are investigating the dead Drazi worlds. All that counts is that the Drazi are mostly gone, though I have no doubt that there might be an isolated population here and there. But that doesn't matter. As soon as the Drazi start spreading once more, I am sure that they will catch the virus again. How is that? I ask, but then I raise a hand. No, wait. I think I get it on my own. You think that one of those investigating species will take it upon themselves to infect the Drazi again, should they ever show their faces again? I am very sure of that. That's how uncontrolled democracy works. And the alliance of species is nothing but an uncontrolled democracy. I am just glad that Sadina somehow managed to make the virus look natural. He answers. Nina's voice interrupts our discussion. The former me got her hands on a Drazi corpse. There are enough viruses inside a healthy human body, and the Drazi are no different. Even a little sample is enough to almost assuredly infect you with the common cold, and that's just one example. There are also hundreds of pathogens hidden inside an animal's genome. All you have to do is to analyze the DNA. Okay, let's say that I buy the story. What else are you working on? I ask. Most importantly, the second Coeus. And secondly, a way to deal with the zine. We shouldn't forget that they still are the puppeteers behind the Drazi. Just because we took away one puppet doesn't mean that they are out of the game. I am working on that too. He interacts with the interface by making a gesture, and something like a mind map appears. I study the plan and notice that it mainly involves paying a lot of money to many shady characters. Gideon, are you sure about this? I don't think that you should use your money like that. This time he can't hide how upset he is. I see no better way to use my money. I bite on my lower lip. Gideon, you hired an alien hitman. Do you think I paid too much? I admit that I don't even know what a Vantua is, but I was assured that he is the best at his job. Galactic Center, Gathering Station. Ayo. Why am I here? I try to get off the handcuffs which chain me to the chair, but the damn things don't even buck. Last night I went to sleep, dreaming nice dreams about killing my brother, and then I wake up and am here in this dark storeroom. Don't worry, we weren't paid to kill you. Then I register the binary in front of me. They bob their heads in amusement and switch on the light. The complete opposite is the case. We are protecting you to ensure that you aren't in the way, or get targeted by accident. Zine are easily confused with their siblings. Not even their own species can discern between brothers. I draw my attention away from the handcuffs and try to think of a binary with enough power and influence to abduct me. Ka-HUD. We are honored. For a local crime lord to be known by one of the station's administrators. One of the binary bows to me while the other remains indifferent. Why should you want to protect me? My thoughts race, but I can't think of a reason for this turn of events. I don't want to do anything aside from doing my job. Ka-HUD corrects me. Your brother is about to die. What? No. My plans. I have to kill him myself. Both of the two parts of the binary nod in unison. Yes, about that. I was told to give you a message from the mages. They said that time is up and they aren't willing to wait any longer. That's why your brother will die tonight. Don't worry, I know that it is common practice among the Zine to kill their siblings to replace them without anyone's knowledge. The strategy works perfectly fine for your race, but that's not what we need in this situation. One of the binary raises a hand to stop me from interrupting it. Let us finish to give you a head start instead of asking meaningless questions. Abducting you in this manner is just to show you that we have the means and to have a little chat. Call it a demonstration. We know what you intend to do. Our client equipped us with various tools and the knowledge to control the most important systems of this station. I must say that their abilities in regards to spying and breaking security systems are outstanding. Probably that shouldn't be a surprise with a species which values their secrecy so highly. The binary pauses for a moment, but starts speaking again shortly afterwards. You see, a while ago we got a very generous offer to work as free agents for our client. He tasked us with assessing the political situation and to influence it to his advantage. Since then we've been working very hard to please our client, and that includes getting your cooperation. The first thing we need from you is getting over your personal vendetta with your brother. And what if I can't do that? I ask, trying to keep my voice in check. To Azine, having control over his outer appearance is everything. What's inside is a secondary matter. Then I would be very sad and change my plans. The latter includes making you disappear along with your brother. Coeus shrugs his shoulders in perfect synchronization. You wouldn't dare to do that. I am Azine. I try to put as much force as possible into my voice, but Coeus is totally unimpressed. There was a time when that held a lot of meaning. But I am always on the side of who is paying me good money while holding the best promise to be on the winning side at the same time. Don't get me wrong. I would never hope for an open confrontation between Azine and the mages, but when I look at the teleportation nodes and other recent events, I am very eager to please my client. Not only because he is paying me more than a generous sum to do good work. Do you know that they completely eradicated the ships you guys sent after them? Both binary tilt their heads in perfect synchronization. I feel like the floor was just pulled out from under me. No. How would you know that? The battle must have taken place just a few days ago. The message must take months to arrive. Oh. I made a grave mistake. I thought I had more time, but their diplomats will bring this to light much sooner than I expected. No, they have to give me more time to take my brother's position. I think you figured it out. The mages were so friendly as to grant me exclusive access to their new intergalactic news network. They are intending to open it to all the species later on. A way to communicate almost instantaneously between 2 points. One of the binary picks his nose, which is perfectly fine to do in front of strangers. At least in their culture. I hate to break it to you, but your plan has to be accelerated. That means that you can't stick the knife into your brother yourself. Then you have to make the right reports to the right people. I think you already prophesied that the Draza will fail, so that alone will boost your reputation sufficiently. I look at the ground. Maybe I can deal with the fact that I don't get to kill my brother myself, but a kill has no meaning if you can't take the prize. That alone won't help. I need much more to change the politics of our government. Assessing a single event correctly will be seen as luck. If I want people to listen to me, then I must be seen as an expert on the species in question. An expert? Coeus grumbles, but then he nods. Who says that you can't be an expert? I've had a long time to get used to my client, and I am sure that he would be delighted to give you a little warning ahead of time regarding their actions. We will simply make you an expert. Better to say that we will make you the expert. What do you say? What can I say? I am in. Perfect. Coeus claps his hands together and gestures for the door. I was sure that I would manage to convince a reasonable fellow like you, so I organized a friend to keep you company. While we wait until the deed is done, you can have fun with each other. She will also be the one to give you an alibi. Just in case. I doubt that there will be a mentionable investigation. After all, it will look like an accident. The door opens and a certain mermaid steps into the room. Hi. You. I kept my temper in check as long as possible. But too much is too much. What is this betrayal? Not you of all people. Zyle walks closer and runs a hand over my cheek, then she sits down onto my right leg. Sorry, Han. But I always told you that I have many clients. Sometimes there are loyalty conflicts, but since you took the offer, everything is fine now, isn't it? I promise you to make up for it. I slump down and try not to drown in self-pity. At least tell me how you intend to kill my brother. There can't be any mistake. Killing siblings may be normal among my species, but being found out is just embarrassing and lowers the status. It cannot be traced back to me. Not under any circumstances. Oh, that's easy. You should have had the idea yourself. Your brother likes to take a walk along the railway which is running above the aquatic area. Though it's a little strange for Azine to do that. Isn't water poisonous to you? The binary asks. Not really. Just too much of it. And it is no wonder that he likes that. We were born on the south coast of our planet's main continent. There you could always smell the salt from the ocean in the air. Walking along that railway probably feels like you are at home. Especially with the huge heating lights right above you. I ponder. Ah, that's why. The binary nods in understanding. No matter. Just a few hours ago there was a storm simulation for the oceanic life forms. The walkway will still be a little slick from the water and one of the other passengers will slip, pushing your brother over the balustrade. And down into the ocean he goes. It will be a terrible, terrible accident. If the fall doesn't kill him outright. 20 feet make water very hard on impact. Then there is all that water in case he survives and the fact that Zine can't swim. And no help nor land in sight for over a kilometer in all directions. Why didn't I think of this? But no. What if one of the intelligent ocean dwellers notices him and comes to the rescue? Being submerged in water won't kill him instantly. He will survive long enough for help to arrive. Zyle nods and makes a dismissive gesture. Ah, you know that I am very friendly with most of the oceanic species. The Nig are always inviting me to dance for them. They like the slow swaying motions of my hips, though I think it's nothing sexual for them. One of my admirers happens to be a teacher and he was so friendly to have his school of youngsters patrol the area at exactly the right time. Baby Nig are completely different from the adults. The old ones are all formula and logic, but the babies have no brain at all. Just claws, teeth and a belly that's never full. Cute as long as you don't have to deal with the whole swarm. Of course my friend will do his best to protect the foolish dry thinker who stepped into the wrong element. But it is hard for a single adult to keep 100 babies in check. He has just 20 arms after all. That leaves about 80 hungry mouths with sharp teeth and tentacles with 3 centimeter long claws. Zyle bares her teeth at me and snaps them together while making a clawing motion with her left hand. They may get digestive disorders afterwards. I don't think that zine is on their normal menu. Maybe I should get them something that's easy on the belly. Just as a small apology. Why do I have this sudden urge to save my brother? This is just wrong. 90 What if? Nina, the personification of the quantum network, was and is called a lot of things in her eternal existence. A goddess, a blessing by some, a tyrant and a curse by others. Some are still trying to find the reason why her creator harbored such a grudge against his species. But the one thing they all agreed upon was that if she isn't a pervert, she is at least a peeper. In her defense, Nina is still fighting her case in court. According to her, not watching everyone would be a violation of her duty of supervision. She is a superior being after all. Hence, if someone had an accident while she wasn't watching, though she could have kept an eye on him, it would be equal to non-assistance of a person in danger. 300 years later the lawyers are still at their wits' end about that one. From when the mages got themselves a goddess, but forgot about the religion. Soul, ether. Gideon. It has been over a year since I decided to step up to intergalactic politics and I think that I can be satisfied with the reports. Ao's brother had an unfortunate accident and now I have someone who has the ear of the Zine government. Ao is already in deep shit, just by taking my deal. It will be easy to influence him to forward information of my choosing to his government. In addition, Kaahut is doing a really satisfying job. I may not like the guy himself, herself, itself, whatever he is, but I was right when I judged him as a capable individual in his own right. Yes, he may be a cutthroat and a gangster boss, but an honest one. When I compare that to most politicians, then I really prefer the gangster instead of having to deal with a smiling bastard who is just thinking about his own benefit. And in the meantime I met a lot of politicians personally. What can I say, I guess it comes with my accursed job. Of course the gangster is also only caring about his benefits, but at least he isn't hiding himself behind such a facade. I sigh and drop the report, placing my feet on the desk. Yes, being burdened by the position of an elder is the best. I've to find a way to thank Nina for taking that additional responsibility off of my shoulders. Due to myself ending up with 2 government offices, she managed to persuade the elders into doing something about it. The short solution was to reinstall Hedian until the end of my term of office. I myself will have to wait for another 6 years until a new elder is chosen. If I am unlucky I'll end up with the same job. What a horrifying thought. At least I have Scylla and the kids to calm me down. The little ones are so cute in their attempts to get control over the mansion's network. Aurelia and her brother are very competitive when it comes to networking problems. Nina and EXO are teaching them a lot and I am a little envious, to be honest. I wish I could ditch this stupid job to play the lazy sloth for a few years. Suddenly my secretary sticks her head into my office. Excuse me, there is someone who wants to see you. I grumble. I relax just once and in the next 5 minutes I am interrupted. Fine. I'll receive the visitor. There is no reason to ask for the identity of this guest. The fact that he managed to reach my secretary shows that it is an important person. Anyone else would have been stopped by the guards. I may not reside in the main government quarters, but the building I had built on Ether is more than enough to keep away people who have unimportant problems. I am an elder now, so I had to have an appropriate office in Ether. There is no way in hell that I would ever travel back and forth between Ether and Mars on a regular basis. The door opens again and a certain someone steps into the room. For a moment I almost have a heart attack, but then Nina waves her hand and winks at me. Hi, I wanted you to be first to see my new avatar. How do you like it? It looks like your digitalized version. Is there a reason for the yellow hair and the downsized bust? I point at her chest. It is still unreasonably large, but far from the figure which she is using in the projection. Nina suddenly walks forward and hugs me. Silly boy. When I create a body, I still have to stick to certain limitations of the physical world. I don't want my organic representation to fall over because of the weight, or having any other unnecessary medical problems. Unless you resort to cosmetic measures, there is only so much a woman can be. Finally she lets go of me and throws back her hair. And about the hair, well, let's call that a creative intuition. I simply wanted to go for the color. I nod, already arguing with myself. So it takes you a year to grow a full-sized clone for yourself. More or less, and don't call it a clone. It's a facsimile for the nth time. She gestures at the door. But now we have to go. You have to introduce me to the family and especially my sister. I gulp while I am being dragged forward. Sister? That can only mean that she wants to meet Sadhana. Of course they already know of each other, but up until now it seemed like Nina intended to stay away from Sadhana. What changed? And how will Melon take this development? Does Nina intend to stay at the mansion from now on? Nina, forgive me for being slow. But you showing up with a real body somehow hampered my mind. Up until now I only thought of you as an AI. What do we intend to achieve by doing this? Choosing the word we, as to compared to you, is a careful diplomatic consideration of mine. I don't want to make her mad for no reason. Meeting up with the family, of course. I have a lot to catch up to if I ever want to be considered as a real family member. Don't tell me that you forgot about putting this strong wish for kinship with your family into me. I was really on withdrawal for the last year. It took forever to grow this body inside one of my secret facilities. She keeps talking while I am led out of the office and towards the next teleportation chamber. This will be a difficult situation, Nina. I have to try to get a grip on the situation. Grandma and the others will freak out. I hope you don't expect too much. Nina makes a snorting sound. Don't fear. Of course I understand that this project of mine will take a lot of time. But I already invested a lot in talking to the other family members. Being omnipresent and all, I am quite confident that I managed to build a good relationship with everyone. Sure. There is only so much I can think of. Before I am able to come up with a solution, we are back at the family mansion. To my shock I find out that everyone is awaiting us. And by everyone, I literally mean everyone. There are Scylla with Aurelia and Ares, her brother. I admit that his name was a joke on my part. Much like some Americans name their children ketchup or spaghetti. Then there are of course my cousins with their respective partners and my grandparents, including my parents from both sides of the family tree. Hi, all. It's so nice to finally meet you all in person. Sorry for using Gideon's account to call in a really urgent family meeting, but I wanted this to be a surprise. Nina runs forward, greeting everyone in person. A dull thud marks the mental exit of Scylla's father. He drew a hard ticket when he got his mutation, and whenever there is something agitating or surprising him, his lights simply go out. It's somewhat of an old, running gag by now. Though it got worse during the recent months. Hardly anyone pays attention to Gregor when he blacks out. Only his wife Cassidy makes sure that he isn't dead by casting healing magic. When we returned to Seoul, Scylla and I paid a visit to her parents. Apparently Scylla didn't think it to be necessary to mention Aurelia and Ares to her parents. We were at the center of the galaxy after all, so all there was were letters and calls. She really could have mentioned the kids though. So when we showed up on Gregor's doorstep, Aurelia in my arms and Scylla's belly screaming that a second child is already on the way, he almost had a stroke. I already heard about Scylla's reasons for having a grudge against her father, but sometime I really have to research the guy whom he shooed away. Maybe he saved her from a really awful fate? I certainly have to thank him for destroying Scylla's first love, or I might not have had a chance with her. I return my attention to the awkward situation when Scylla approaches me with raised eyebrows and a superior expression on her face. So you still think that she isn't dangerous? I shrug my shoulders submissively. She is the god of the quantum net. Who are we to deny her the wish to socialize with us? I put my arms behind me and straighten myself. Okay. I admit. I wanted a god who is everything the other gods are not. Scylla's eyebrows rise even higher. Meaning? I let my shoulders go limp. She is very interested in us, and I don't think that her behavior will stop anytime soon. The gods of other religions are always just a silent force which never shows itself. She is. I turn my attention to Nina, who is shaking Sadana's hands and throwing dirty glances at Ed. Interested in her charges. 91 Epilogue I. What is it that all equations have in common? They have a solution. Nig wisdom. Soul, ether. Ed. That's the third time you sighed. What's wrong? Sadana asks from my left while clinging to my arm. We are currently on the sofa in Gideon's living room and waiting for the third annual space race to begin. I put a smile on my face and try to ignore the fact that being without my mask feels really strange. Without the stupid thing everyone sees through me much too easily because I am particularly bad at hiding my emotions. It's just that I am bored. With Nina around I have a lot of free time. All I got to do recently is office work and the occasional deployment against an alien species. You are such a bad liar. At least now we know for certain that Gideon is related to you. Nina interjects from my right side and places a kiss on my cheek. Then she throws her right leg above mine, snuggling up to me entirely too close. Hey. Sadana hisses from my left. Don't overdo it. We have children here. I pale, letting my eyes wander down to Aurelia. The toddler stands in front of the sofa and watches us with interest and wisdom in her eyes. It doesn't match her age. Technomages are freaky. Upon noticing my stare she smiles warmly. Totally unlike her father. Don't mind me. It's not like I am completely clueless on what adults do behind closed doors. I just lack the physical need for now, but according to the books it's an understandable and necessary thing. But that doesn't mean that I am not interested in the interactions between different genders. Nina nods and places her head on my shoulder. See? There is no problem with cuddling. And besides, we promised to share Ed. Right, down, the middle. I didn't cross the border, sister. She runs a finger from my forehead, over my nose, and down to my groin. We will see about that. Sadana copies Nina's actions, leaving me intertwined with two beautiful women. It's every man's dream, but somehow it doesn't feel like I have anything to say in this relationship. Gideon, Hedion, and Arend enter the room, immediately throwing mischievous glances at me. Arend is the first one to reprimand me. What's this, Ed? We invited you to our man evening and you show up with a beauty on each arm. I had no choice, they said that they want to accompany me. I answer to defend myself. Yes, we have to make up for several years of unrequited love. How dare you to place a ban of women on a social event? It's not like you could keep me out anyway. Nina complains. This is about principle. Hedian explains. We sit down and try to talk about men's stuff while trying to ignore the fact that a woman is listening in. And it seems like you two have Ed firmly under your thumbs. So leave him to us and get lost. He won't hook up with one of us even if you don't keep watch. Hedian gestures at Nina's and Sadana's round bellies and I feel sweat breaking out on my forehead. Yet. That's one of my biggest mistakes ever. How could I have been so dumb to do it with two women at the same time? But when they both sent me positive signals my brain simply shorted out. First with Sadana whom I chased after for years, regretting my decisions with her. Then that fatal night with Nina, who is Sadana too and yet not. I am still confused about my feelings. I wonder if I will ever stop having a bad conscience about it. At least they somehow came to an agreement in terms of sharing me with each other, though they made it clear that I lost my vote in this relationship when I created a love triangle. Sadana sighs and lets go of me. Fine. Nina, come. Let's give the men a little room. I don't want anyone to see me as a control freak. They can have their fun. Nina points at Aurelia who is standing in front of us. Then what about her? She is a woman too. Aurelia's eyebrows rise, but Gideon defends her. She is just a child, even if she already knows a lot of things. Aurelia shakes her head. No. It's okay, Dad. I don't feel mentally prepared to learn about what men talk about when they are by themselves. She raises her chubby hands towards Nina. Grandma, let's have some fun. I heard that there is a circus from Earth visiting the colony. I've never visited a circus. Oh, dear. Of course we will visit the circus with you. We will take your brother too while we are at it. Nina lets go of me and picks up Aurelia. Then the two of them leave the room with Sadana on their heels. When they are gone I take a deep breath and try to relax. Freedom. Even if it is just for a short while. While Arend is busy with carrying tons of snacks and drinks into the living room Hedian takes a seat right next to me. So? How is it to do my daughter? ×2. I decide that it is better to stare at the wall where Gideon's private home cinema will display the race. What can an honorable man like me say in a situation like this? Okay, maybe I am not that honorable anymore. There simply is no correct answer to this question. All I can do is stand by my mistake. What's done is done. Exhausting. I see. Hedian answers, but I still avoid his eyes and take one of the drinks which Arend is offering me. Thank you. So your project is getting really popular, it seems. According to the projections you have almost as many viewers as the yearly tournaments. Break the ice and draw his attention to something else. Yes, indeed. We too were surprised. The first race didn't draw that much attention, but then we teamed up with Paul and persuaded him to sponsor a ship to every big school. The students there are allowed to design the ship themselves and since then our events got more spectators each year. Paul also benefits from it because he can scout talents in advance. Yes. Paul, where is he? I thought he will join us. I ask. He will be late. I think Sodden wanted a little attention. Gideon winks at me. But since we are already talking about female attention, how about adding a third member to your harem? I still have this old copy of Sadana's. That won't be necessary. I hurriedly interrupt Gideon, already feeling the daggers in my side. Hedian will kill me. He is a very open-minded fellow, but when it comes to his own daughters he draws the line. Arend sighs and takes his place on the couch. Let's just watch the race. I heard that one of the teams managed to miniaturize an antimatter reactor. Their ship is practically just the reactor with the rune circuits to create the necessary propulsion. I am really interested how that concept turns out. Gideon starts chuckling. In one big explosion. Then let's be glad that the ships are remote controlled. I add. How much do you bet that Gideon is right? I don't bet. Gideon answers. 1 monthly salary. Hedian announces. I am in on it. The ship won't explode. Arend offers. 92 Epilogue 2. Everyone has his own personal purgatory. That's why hell isn't the same to everyone. Therefore a faceless always has to think carefully before choosing a proper punishment. Verse Vixii of the Faceless Codex. 30 years later, Coeus 2. Aurelia. Stop drumming with your fingers, Ares. We are on a mission here. I reprimand my brother who is making noise in his pilot chair. His black hair and eyes make him look very similar to Dad, but his personality is entirely too carefree. Sorry, sis. Finally Ares stops his attack on my ears and returns to his duties. There is only so much I can tolerate. We are about to enter a potentially hostile system which should be currently holding a ship of the silent gods. I lean back and try to relax while we slowly approach the star at 10% light speed. Ares calls up a chart of the system and turns his attention towards me. I guess I am simply nervous. There are so many rumors about ships simply disappearing. The various alien species don't even try to investigate the silent gods anymore. Yes. But that's because their technology is inadequate for the task. The Coeus 2 is humanity's first real warship. All the previous ships were nothing more than rigged together from already existing systems. They were a fast and dirty approach to get done what is needed. Of course that didn't make them bad ships, but they weren't what was needed to make a statement to alien forces. The Coeus 2 is a spherical leviathan on the scale of a small planetoid object. The singularity in its core is providing more than enough energy to roast a planet, and with a diameter of 100 kilometers it rivals a mid-sized colony like Ether. Only that there is no living space on this ship. The entire thing is just armor, drives, weapons and sensors. Like I already said, a ship to make a statement. Before we went on the final part of our mission, we took a little detour through the teleportation network which is enclosing the entire galaxy. It wasn't really necessary to do this, but it's never a bad idea to show that the real owners of the network aren't a joke. Establishing the network was easier than making everyone understand that it is ours. Many species tried and are still trying to steal the technology. Seoul's government isn't going easy on them. Everyone who gets found out has to deal with massive repercussions and military intervention. Seen in that light, our little patrol round is as much for their benefit as for ours. Normally we don't venture far out of our home systems, which makes some aliens forget that the teleportation node in their system has an owner. Our visit to the Xene homeworld was also very important to show that we haven't forgotten about their underhanded attack on us. The Xene haven't exactly lost power after the exposure of their machinations. But they certainly lost a lot of trust among the various races, which limits their possibilities to act. For them that's almost as bad as having lost several fleets of their own ships. The positive side about their culture is that they would never engage in open warfare if it is avoidable. They only try to play others against each other. When their nature was exposed to everyone, they lost the image of a nice older brother. It became a lot harder to control the younger races. I grin upon remembering their reaction when the Coeus 2 showed up above their homeworld 20 years ago. We didn't fire a single shot, yet the southern coast of their main continent was devastated. The artificial singularity's gravity was enough to influence the planet's tidal forces, slowly flooding over the intertidal zone. They were mad like hell, but couldn't really complain since we didn't fire a single shot. In the end they drafted up a law that banned our Leviathan class from entering an orbit around planets with an ocean or a weak crust. It's one of the very few accomplishments they had in the gathering of civilized races since we exposed their nature. But after our little demonstration it was only a matter of time until other races would come up with a similar proposal. Stop dreaming and concentrate. We are about to close in on the other ship. Ares wakes me from my personal reminiscence. You could have said that you don't want my drumming because you want to sleep. Yes, yes. Then close your suit. I answer lazily and glare at him, closing my helmet. The cockpit is small and has just enough space for 3 pilot chairs, one of them empty. There is no sign of the big command bridges like they are depicted in my father's movies. Such a concept is simply not practical. Why would any sane person divert the control over a ship among several independent sentients? The ship of the silent gods seems to be in an inactive state above the 5th planet. There are several pylons reaching down into the atmosphere. I strongly suspect that they are space lifts. Nina's voice echoes through the cockpit. Oh, yes. How could I have forgotten that our goddess is wherever she has a decently sized quantum computer available? Are there any signs of an attack? I raise the shields and magical countermeasures to their maximum, just in case. Then I concentrate my attention on the silent gods. It's a huge ship. Almost as big as the Coeus 2. But that isn't surprising. Building a ship much bigger than the Coeus becomes impractical very fast. The bigger the ship, the easier you can hit it with something nasty. There are enough doomsday weapons like an FTL drive for example. A single ship could damage the Coeus gravely with a kamikaze attack. I enlarge the ship of the silent gods and admire its beauty. The entire ship seems to consist of some kind of blue crystal. It's shaped like a shield and pointing down towards the planet. Is there a way to analyze the material? The material is unknown, but I strongly suspect some form of grown crystal like the dome above Ether. Nina answers immediately. Are we already inside the dangerous area? Ares asks. I look at the scale of the magnification. We are still outside the range which is deemed as unsafe by our information. We approach the ship in silent anticipation until we reach the point at which a ship normally gets destroyed. Just a few light seconds away our anti-magical systems spike once, deflecting an attack. Just now the other ship tried to open a spatial rift inside our ship. Nina's voice reports coldly. If we hadn't put up wards against that the Coeus would have taken serious damage. Ares whistles between his teeth. Don't you need a quantum computer to do that? Only the cores of the mainframe would be able to create a rift that's big enough to damage a ship. But who would need that much computational power on a vessel? I raise an eyebrow, a strange thought worming its way through my brain. Aren't our big cores using such quantum entanglements to communicate across the galaxy? Yes. They need to be big to bridge the distance. Nina explains patiently. Don't tell me that they just tried to communicate with us. There is no reason to create such a big rift just to communicate with a ship that close. We are right next to them. Ares spreads his hands. Who knows how they think? Is there a reason to tune the volume down if you have a big speaker and enough energy? Maybe they don't have any ships without big cores. I wet my lips, dreading what I am about to say. Nina, do you think we can connect to their computer? We also have a rather large computer, haven't we? Nina stays silent for several moments and I already start fearing that something happened to our connection. Then she finally answers. Connection established. Trying to translate their protocols. Another minute goes by, which is an eternity when you compare it to Nina's speed. I gained access and the other ship confirmed that we are allowed to go on board. Okay. So we simply teleport there? Or do we have to take a shuttle? Ares asks, gesturing at his screen with the alien ship. I got teleportation coordinates. Nina answers and in the next moment I find myself sitting on a crystal floor. Hey. Warn us the next time. Just be glad that we were already suited up. Sorry. But if you weren't, I wouldn't have teleported you. Nina's voice comes out of my suit's microphone. Both Aries and I get to our feet and my brother starts his own rant. I am too young for this. That was irresponsible, Nina. What if there is something dangerous here? Hush. Our father was younger than us when he went on his first adventure. I reprimand him and read the information on my suit's HUD. The atmosphere is breathable, but not very healthy for humans. Too much CO and other nitric oxides. The silent gods must have one hell of a metabolism to live of that. Then I survey the small niche in which we appeared. It belongs to a long, curved corridor. Both ends aren't in sight. This is much like one of our teleportation chambers. So the silent gods had magic. I draw my knife and try to scratch the floor. The entire ship seems to be made out of the blue crystal. Nothing. Not even a scratch. Well, seems like it stands up to our monomolecular blades. Ares gestures at the wall and points his suit's camera at it. Nina, you must have translated their language. What's written there? I haven't translated as much as you might hope. The ship's communication with me is very limited. I need direct access to their network. Nina's voice is a little frustrated, but turns hopeful upon deciphering the text. To the left you will reach something control related and to the right seems to be something like crew quarters or recreational areas. I turn left. Then left we go. There has to be some kind of computer access. The corridor winds itself in circles upwards until we reach a door which slides open upon entering the room. Ares gestures at the door frame. At least they didn't think much of security. I enter the empty room and recognize consoles and strangely shaped seats for 10 people. The one in the middle of the room doesn't have a console, but instead there is just a roughly shaped crystal floating in front of it. There are no aliens and the room is completely clean and empty. Seems like there is nobody at home. But why is everything so clean? There are no dust particles in the air, so there is no reason for the ship to become dirty while the crew is away. Ares answers my question. If I had bothered to spend a little more attention to the air's composition I could have answered it myself. I click my tongue and gesture at the floating crystal. Nina, you think that may be the main console? Can you link up to it over my suit? Only one way to find out, my grandmother answers cheerfully. I touch the crystal and it lights up, projecting something like a three-dimensional avatar 2 meters in front of it. The alien is humanoid and very close to a human woman. If there weren't some strange additions to her body she would be fine among us mages. Her features may be a strange combination of several ethnic groups, but that became the norm in our society long ago. What identifies her as an alien are the horns on her head and the snake eyes. She also comes with a lizard-like tail which is very active. The scales shimmer in different colors as the light is reflected by them. Then the avatar starts speaking in a strange tongue. Obviously another language. I am sorry, but I don't understand. I try to answer, but the avatar simply continues speaking without taking notice of me. Seems like we hit the answer phone. Do you get any of that, Nina? Not completely, but I am getting better since I've got access to their network. Keep your hand on the crystal. Apparently she is giving you a short story of her species. Her people evolved and lived on their world until their star died. By that time they already had the technology to leave their planet. They traveled out into the galaxy, but didn't find many hospitable worlds. After a while they found a new world and rebuilt their society. Having learned from their mistakes they decided that their heritage could only survive if they spread as far, and became as multifaceted, as possible. Never again should something less than a catastrophe on cosmic scale threaten their existence. In absence of a better solution they decided on automated seed ships which spread their genetic code throughout the galaxy, changing indigenous life forms on some planets, while creating complete ecosystems on others. So the aliens weren't wrong when they called this a seed ship. I mumble, watching the exotic alien. It is what the ships do. Nothing much to get wrong about interpreting their actions. Ares replies. My mind is in a haze. How old are these ships? Are the silent gods still around? Why don't they check on their vessels? I gesture at the avatar who is still speaking. Is there no AI in their network to keep watch? Nina's answer is sobering. I am afraid that there is no AI on this ship. As for their entire network I can't tell yet. But you don't have to worry about the silent gods. I highly doubt that they are still around. What's that supposed to mean? Ares asks dumbfounded. This ship is old. And when I say that I really mean it. I haven't found a reliable reference to their time unit, but when I look at the ship's path and take into account that it is flying at relativistic speeds, millions of years. Even if the silent gods are still around in some form, they must have long since moved on. Either by dying out or evolving into something completely different. It seems like the seed ships are a project that was abandoned for a long time. They focused their efforts on another project, another means to secure their existence. The latest logs speak of something they call transcendence, but what that actually means eludes me. There are no detailed descriptions. Ares sighs. At least that means that they pose no new threat. Though now that we are here I wish that there had been a little more adventure to it. I straighten up and look at my brother. I'll never get you. First you complain about the danger and now this adventure was too boring. Just think how much genetic data and star maps this ship must have accumulated. This is a treasure trove beyond belief. Nina's chuckle interrupts me. Oh, there is so much genetic data. It'll be a real pleasure to work myself through that information. Totally unlike the problem I had with Ed's infertility. That was a really trivial problem compared to this. Ares's expression turns surprised. Since when is Ed infertile? He has 5 children with Nina and 4 with Sadana. I pity the guy. Babysitting children for 30 years is no fun. There are some things men don't have to know. Nina answers mysteriously. The end.